Maybe you gotta do, you get your own thing there. Yeah, you can get that. All right, if you can all stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you and welcome. All right, Kathy, can you do a roll call, please?
Seaman.
Present.
Petrakos.
Present.
Birdbauer.
Here.
Delovely.
Here.
Vandermeer.
Here.
Desnick.
Here.
Bartleson.
Here.
And Perez. Here. We have a quorum.
All righty then. So, tonight, got a couple things going on. Liaisons, what do you got? Anything? What do you got? Any good announcements?
Yeah, we attended a sanitary district meeting, 6 o'clock or 5:30, whatever time it was. Pretty productive meeting, I thought. It was nice to have no animosity in the room as compared in the past, and so we talked about some things that we're a couple of months away, from discussing here, but some things ideas within the entire system and in regards to water, and so that was pretty productive. And last night I had the opportunity to be with the chief and with the haunted squad cars. We had a lot of fun, handed out candy. We were in a number of subdivisions, and every time we stopped, the kids would kind of just run, and it was a fun night. I had a good time.
I want to thank all of the because he was with us all afternoon, all into the early evening, and he was dressed as a carpet-bagging zombie. Spent a lot of time with us recently.
Yeah.
And in case anybody was worried, they were still working because they came by our block and there was an accident, so they stopped and, took care of that.
Nobody takes you serious when you have skeletons on top of your squad.
It was kind of hard. Oh, well, thanks. That was fun that you guys did that. Appreciate it. Anybody else?
Yes, Mayor, I just wanted to reiterate that we're still doing the awards for most decorative home for Halloween. We have our homes that we have picked out. Now, unfortunately, we are not able to be everywhere. However, though, I need to ask my fellow alderwomen to please submit some names of people that you think might be able to join the beautification committee, so that way we can have more eyes out there to pick out more homes that have been decorated it's going to be for Halloween, for fall decoration, and then we're going to have the holiday lights. And that will be awarding the most decorative homes in the near future in November. Okay, so so that's going real well, and we're excited to nominate the homes.
Good, thanks. Thanks for doing that, Joanne. Appreciate it. Anybody else?
Can I give an update?
Yeah, please.
We have No Shave November coming up, so you will see our shaggy police officers. That is started now. And any female officer who wants to partake can get a blue strip in their hair. So if you see an officer with a blue strip, that is part of the process too. And then also we had a memorial last Friday for a former detective of ours. He had passed away, Paul Rodriguez, so that was a memorial for him with a lot of police presence attending it, and that was this past Friday. And then also, piggybacking what Darren said, the haunted squad cars, there was 2 of them. A lot of people posted pictures on Facebook of it, so we could see that they had covered a lot of ground, and it's a lot of positive PR for our police station. So thank you.
All right, very good. And I know, Lou, sorry, I forgot. Can you open us in prayer? I think I've skipped over that. I apologize.
Would you pray with me, please? Almighty God, we thank you for your grace and freedom that we have in our country. May the riches of your provision rest upon our city, the elected officials, employees, volunteers, and businesses, and the families within our city. We ask you tonight for our mayor and our council that you would graciously grant them wisdom and courage and the ability to work together in harmony and unity. Give them personal peace in their lives and their families, and give them joy as they serve our city. We ask for your comfort and your wisdom to be with the city of New York. We ask you for our law enforcement and military to have awareness of terrorist plans in our world and enable them to stop these senseless acts. We ask you to keep our military forces and families safe around the world. Bless our veterans and their families for their service. We ask you to protect our city's law enforcement, fire personnel, and our schools. In your mighty name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Lou. Appreciate it. All right, anything else from liaison reports? We have a proclamation to be read tonight. That is for Small Business Saturday that's coming up on November 25th. So I will read it now, which will be perfect because it'll lead nicely into our IDOT project. So, whereas in 2010, American Express founded Small Business Saturday to help businesses with their most pressing need of getting more customers, and whereas this single day has grown into a powerful movement and more people are taking part than ever before, and whereas small business is the cornerstone of our free enterprise system, and since the birth of this country has represented opportunity, independence, and the fulfillment of dreams for generations of Americans. And whereas small business owners who work long hours juggling family and career responsibilities and serving as community volunteers are integral to our country's prosperity and to the vibrancy of our community. These entrepreneurs are fundamental to our economy. Through the opportunities offered by the men and women who own and operate small businesses, many of our citizens are able to pursue their dreams of a better life. And whereas the City of Lockport, along with the Lockport Chamber of Commerce, supports our local businesses that create jobs, boosts our local economy, and invigorate neighborhoods. And whereas residents of our community and communities across the country are being asked to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. And whereas the City of Lockport, along with the Chamber of Commerce, wishes to recognize small businesses for the key role they play in keeping our economy strong. And now, therefore, I, Stephen Streit, Mayor of the City of Lockport in Will County, Illinois, do hereby proclaim November 25th, 2017 as Small Business Saturday in Lockport, and urge all citizens to join us with this observance as we celebrate the accomplishments of small business owners and their employees and encourage the development of new small businesses. So we'll approve that this day and get that signed by Kathy. Everybody in agreement on that?
Yep.
All right. So thanks. And, you know, that's a great segue into one of the things we want to talk about today, and that is our upcoming IDOT construction project. Who's here from D today? My glasses. There you are. Hey, good to see you. Thanks for coming out today. So, if you don't mind, if you can come up and kind of give, I know we had talked at the IDOT meeting a few weeks ago, and, you know, I shared my concerns with IDOT and with Deconstruction, who's going to be the main contractor on it. But we also had our own staff there. Brent was there, Ben was there, and some of the other players who will be involved in it. It's just emphasizing the importance of this project to our city. We've had a master plan for redeveloping downtown for decades, quite frankly, and there's been more than one. But this was the first opportunity we've had to be able to enact that master plan, to put it into play, at least in some fashion. In this case, it was between 8th and 10th Street because of the IDOT reconstruction. You guys all know the story. IDOT wanted to get rid of our parking, but we pushed back a little bit so that we could keep that parking. And in the process, we ended up with the plan that's here before us. So IDOT's agreed to rip everything out, and before we put it all back together, we're going to be able to implement parts of our master plan. That said, it's going to be painful. It's going to be tough. They always are. Every time I've seen one of these projects happen in a city, whether it's Plainfield or Downers Grove or elsewhere, it's always very painful when it happens. And so when we sat down with IDOT and with Deconstruction, we wanted to emphasize that this is not the kind of project that we can tolerate, you know, truancy. We can't see guys showing up for a day and they're not showing up for a week after that. We need to be methodical, and we need to follow through a list as best we can. Certainly there's going to be problems and challenges that are unforeseen, but how can our staff and engineering and IDOT all work together to overcome those challenges as they come up in an expedited way and as thorough as possible? So those were all things that we had a good conversation with at the IDOT meeting, and I felt like Deconstruction and IDOT and everybody felt like we're all on the same page. But I thought it appropriate, though, for Dee to come out and kind of give a presentation to us on kind of where they're coming from and how they are going to approach this project as well. So the floor is open, so please introduce yourself and kind of lay it on us.
I'm Jeff Gillen. I'm the General Superintendent for bridge construction for deconstruction. So I'll have a lot of involvement with the project because there is quite a bit of structure work on this. As the mayor said, you know, the city has conveyed the importance of this project, and we fully understand that. That's why part of the reason the way we're approaching this, you know, we could potentially start this project this season, but then you're going to have the road tour up for the winter. So what we've done is compressed our schedule down. We're proposing a start in, you know, late February, early March, all weather dependent, and our plan is to compress the entire construction schedule so that we're only in construction from, say, March to November, so that there's, you know, to try to limit the impact. And as the mayor said, the Public Works Office, the mayor's office, they've, you know, committed a lot of their resources into helping us, because obviously we as a company have done a lot of these projects in Will County, from Plainfield to Wilmington to, you know, all over Will County. We've done a lot of these. Whenever you get into these vaulted sidewalks in this type of project, you are going to have unforeseen. So, I mean, they've committed resources to finding quick answers so that when we do come across a problem, we can, you know, come to a solution quickly, because that's what slows the project down. When you can't get answers, you can't proceed with the work. So if we can get quick answers, we can keep crews on site, keep moving forward, and trying to get this done as quickly as possible. Just a general scope of the project, the way it's laid out, IDOT has it set up where the west side of the road will be staged first. That's where the construction will be done first. So you'll have a single lane southbound traffic, 2 lanes of northbound traffic. The parking stalls will be removed during construction. Again, the city has made a lot of prep work for that, additional off-site parking to help with the businesses downtown. And then our approach, when we do get in there to start that work on the sidewalks, you know, we do have to open them up. We're going to open them up. We're going to install temporary crossings to keep, you know, access to all the businesses. And by doing it that way, we can, you know, proceed with the work as quickly as possible. If we open it up fast, we can get it done quickly. So it should work out well. Right now, we're anticipating the west side we'll be working on from, you know, March, whenever we get started, till sometime in July. Around mid-July, we should switch to the east side. Traffic will be switched back to the west side then, and the east side will be the construction area. You'll have 1 lane of traffic northbound at that time and 2 lanes of traffic southbound. We're in conversations right now with utility companies. They're one of the biggest, you know, they can, you know, dictate a lot of how we're going to proceed with our work, but we're working with Nicor, ComEd, AT&T, all the utilities that are downtown there to make sure that by March, when we need to do our work, that they're out of our way so that we can proceed and there's no holdups. There will be one detour in stage 1. Route 7 will be closed off there. It'll just be a weekend detour from Friday evening till early Monday morning, I believe it is. So just a short window in order to get a crossing across Route 7 there. So I think all in all, I think it should be a good project. We're excited to be here. We're excited to do the work. I think it should come out well. So is there any questions or?
I just have one request. The inevitable is going to happen when there's going to be a slowdown or days where people may not be there. I would just ask that if you know this is going to happen, to send our city administrator an email, so then he can send it to us, so then we have an answer, so we can actually tell people, versus I have to go ahead and say what's going on, then he has to go ahead and call you, and then a couple of days later we get something back. Just so everybody knows what's going on, you know, if we have an explanation, if there is a slowdown or a stoppage for whatever reason, we actually know why.
Sure.
Immediately versus, you know, a couple of days later. That's all. That's all I really request.
Sure, and I think Public Works, you know, we have a good working relationship. I think he's going to be on top of it. He'll know exactly what's going on. And, you know, a lot of times people don't, they don't see action, but there's usually a reason for that. You know, IDOT, that's who our contract is with. You know, they have a specific set of rules that we have to follow. Just an example, if, you know, say we come out and we pour curb, you know, we get everything subgraded, all the stone is in and everything's ready to go, and we pour concrete curb. Well, you have to let that cure for so many days, and you can't work around it. You know, we can't put the asphalt adjacent to it until we get cure on it. So, I mean, situations like that may arise where you pour the curb and there's 3 days that pass that there isn't work, but then on the 4th day you can come in and start laying the asphalt. So, I mean, there's certain instances, and I think if, you know, Brett's on board with us, I think we should be fine. You should be aware of what's going on.
Thank you.
I think that's where you need to communicate with with Brett, because as a person going downtown, if you've got 3 days and it's curing, you know that, but we don't know that. All
Sure.
we see is there's no work being done.
Sure, and that'll be communicated.
Okay. When we had talked at that last meeting with IDOT, there was concern about, like when you guys finish, say, the west side and you move to the east side of the street, that signing off at the level that the next group can go in and start putting the sidewalks in the way that we've designated for the master plan, as opposed to filling it in with something temporary, which would just drive me crazy. So where were we at with that? Did you guys feel like there's better coordination now, how that can get signed off and move forward, or is that still up in the air?
Still up in the air. We talked about it at our last IDOT meeting, give or take 3 weeks ago. We met for a second time. It's still up in the air, and ultimately it will be IDOT's, you know, decision. It's IDOT's project, so it ultimately will be their decision. Feel like we have a good, again, working relationship, as Jeff mentioned, and trying to build that trust with them so they do understand that we are, you know, once we do flip, there's a lot of benefit to doing that. There's also cost savings, there's time savings, so short answer, no, we don't have a decision yet from IDOT, but continuing to work on that.
How we work, is that with Leanne, is that?
Leanne, yep.
Okay. Is she still in the office down here, or does she move over?
3 weeks ago, like I said, she was still there.
Okay.
When we met, so
All right.
still in Lockport.
All right. If you need, you know, me come out again and sit down and have that conversation, don't hesitate to call on me to come out there.
We're also going to get weekly updates from deconstruction in the beginning of this launch in February, and so we'll be able to relay a lot of that communication with you. I know besides the temporary sidewalk plan, I think the temporary lighting plan still has to be figured out with IDOT, because the city has to remove the existing historical lighting before they can begin. So we're ready to do that, but we don't want to remove lighting until we have a temporary lighting plan approved by IDOT. And then we did talk about the utilities, and we continue to coordinate, and I think I saw a meeting pop up in my calendar with them again next week. We might be letting NICOR do a little work yet this year if possible, because we really, you know, we've all had experience in this where we are waiting for delays because of utilities. And so I've talked to Christina, and we've kind of mentioned it at the Lockport Live committee meetings, that we may want to tear up the west side a little bit. You can see cones out there now, but we haven't begun to do anything, because we want to make sure we coordinate with NICOR that when they start, they can complete what they need to do, and we can at least get a temporary patch in for the winter. You know, and even worst case scenario, if we have to cover things with steel plates and pour cement, let it cure, and then pull those away. But it would be really good to get NICOR to relocate one main, because we don't want to be waiting on them in February when they want to get started. So I just want to bring that up, that you may see a little construction yet this year, but that's just a utility relocate.
All right. And then,
Question is there some master plan, or is it still in the works about signage of getting into all the parking lots and what businesses, what parking lots go to where, and so when people are driving through the construction, you guys got to cover?
We're working on it.
Okay.
in fact, Christine has a meeting tomorrow night as well for Lockport Live, so they'll continue to have those discussions as well.
At Embers, if anybody would like to join.
Yeah. Embers, 7:15, 7:15 or 7:30?
7:15.
7:15. Third floor? Where you guys meet?
Third floor, yeah.
Okay, the little conference room? All right. All right. So anyways, they'll have that conversations up there. So that's stuff trying to find and plan events around and throughout the summer to keep things viable. So they've, you know, a lot of work there, and I think good input too from the business community and some of the other members that are on that. You know, I think some small things we talked about too, which I think can help alleviate some confrontations is, you know, I asked that, you know, give Brent's business card to all the construction workers, right? So when somebody runs out there like, why are you doing this? It doesn't need to be an exchange between some guy who's just trying to dig a hole. You know, he's like, just, here's Brent's number, right? And that way they can call you directly and get answers from.
And exactly to that point, I do with deconstruction. We have talked to them about if somebody does approach you, not to be rude, but you may just simply walk away in certain instances, and the thought is to call me, because again, they don't know what necessarily is going on. They're working hard to do certain things, and so I just want to throw that out there. So if somebody does approach, somebody from deconstruction and again, not just to turn your back on them, but please call the city. That would probably be the end of the exchange, and I just want everybody to be prepared for that.
Yeah, I mean, most of the times the guys can just answer a simple question, but if there's something that's complicated, or it's like, well, then the right person to talk to is Brent, and here's his number. So, make sure we keep the right lines of communication going. So, all right.
One final question. So then, if you plan on finishing November, I know we're trying to run this streetscape project maybe right behind you or something, or kind of even right with you, with the west side, east side. Then you leave it? It will be open to the public how? Or, I mean, what is your, when you leave in November, how is the job complete for you?
Well, ideally, we would be interested in doing the streetscape project. I mean, we're going to aggressively pursue that and bid that project. If we're successful, we can try to coordinate some of that work with our current contract work that we have. If we're unsuccessful, we'll have to revisit it at that time. I mean, part of our contract is when we are done, we're supposed to put 2 inches of bituminous pavement between the business fronts and the curb. Is how we're supposed to leave it, so that you have a hard surface for winter, or for foot traffic. So.
And that's the part that I was talking about earlier. It's like, why are we going to lay that down only to then have another contractor come in and tear it up and then start the sidewalk? That's the kind of stuff that drives us all crazy in government, right? Like, what kind of morons in government? Why would the city council be so stupid? So those are the kind of things I'm trying to find ways to avoid. So, some solutions are if D does all of it, it helps them coordinate. It's harder to coordinate with 2 separate construction companies at the same time. But that's what
I would say that there is potential. Even if deconstruction were not to get it, I think the west side, our goal would be to get the west side done to a hardscaped. The east side, quite honestly, I don't think the deconstruction could leave the project without putting that bituminous down for the winter. I just don't think that IDOT, I don't think it would be in our best interest, again, liability-wise and IDOT. So, but I do think the west side. And this is if they were not successful for the streetscape project.
We could potentially work on that west side as early as July or August and still get that side done.
Right.
It just depends on those impacts.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Dee or Brent on this? No. Jeff, I appreciate you coming out and talking to the council as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right, what do we got next?
We're going to do, if you don't mind, Mayor, we'll do CA2 real quick before CA1, which is the 2018 annual meeting for the calendar. Each year, the clerk's office submits a potential calendar of meetings for the city council. They're officially in your packet. I did note, we were pointed out with one typo that we won't be having the Police Commission and H&A meetings at the Community Center on 921 South State anymore. That will be corrected before we end up posting it, but on this draft is in your packet and correct. The actual dates for the City Council and the Committee of the Whole meetings are correct, and we have 1 or 2 requests to consider, really. One is, if you recall, this year we didn't have the one meeting on July 5th, and there's another potential conflict with that meeting will fall on July 4th. I would recommend we just remove that from our calendar and do one meeting in July. We didn't seem to have any operational problems passing bills at that point. There's a second request where, for your consideration, where there is a meeting the day before Thanksgiving. That would be a Wednesday that week. We could certainly leave that on the agenda and make a decision on whether you want to hold that meeting at that time, or you could also remove that at this time. So it's entirely up to the council. These are your meetings.
You got thoughts, concerns on it?
Yes.
I would say remove both.
Remove both, yes.
All right, and we'll leave it up. Here's our option. if there's something pressing
one
that's
vote.
like this we have to deal with, we can always
You can always have a special meeting.
back on. Okay,
We can either have, we can put it back on by request, or we can have a special meeting by request at any point.
okay.
So, okay, so we'll put this on the city council for approval. If you're okay with consent, we'll just remove those 2 meetings by request.
Okay.
Could you just repeat those 2 dates?
Yeah, they would be, the first one would be, I believe, Wednesday, July 4th. We would not have a council meeting. And the second one would be Wednesday, November 21st, the day before Thanksgiving. We would not have a council meeting. Otherwise, the rest of the council calendar will be followed.
Okay. You guys
So
want to go
we'll-
back to CA1 then?
Yes, thank you. Mayor and member of the council, CA1 is a consideration for amending Resolution 04200. That is a resolution regarding the reduction in school facility impact fees. I'd like to clarify, there's a lot of information in your packet tonight. I also put out some handouts from a PowerPoint I created today on your seat. I wanted to clarify that this is not necessarily regarding land cash. If you recall, we did update land cash earlier this year with the school districts in partnership with them and with an appraisal that they do each year to set those values. Those have been corrected. This is not also any fees that schools charge students or their families. If you recall, there was another gentleman in here earlier last year complaining about certain types of school fees. Those are determined by each school based on their students and what they do, and that has nothing to do with this either. But what this is about is future facilities. This is a school facility impact fee. So by this resolution, per ordinance, the city establishes this policy for local school districts to ability to collect funds. This is a condition when it happens for undeveloped land, so this is only new residential and vacant lands, that they would pay a one-time fee to a local builder that would be building homes in the city of Lockport. Originally, these were implemented because at the time, there was a very significant residential development boom and population growth in the city of Lockport. School districts didn't have their financial resources that they needed to provide schools and improvements and school sites. There were certain residential developments that could potentially cause hardship on the operational finances of the school districts. At the time, there was existing ordinances requiring dedications of land with contributions of money in lieu of. So there was a lot of complicated formulas there. And there was a finding that there should be, an established school facility fee at that time. And I think all of which these items have certainly changed since 2004. There's an initial fee that's in the program that's increased 4% a year. That's called an escalator. That has been continuing to go up since its improvement. There is and again, this really affects new home builders in the city of Lockport. The other thing that the city council has done for them is we have had residential fee permit reductions on the city's portion for the last few years. And if you recall, we've actually sunsetted that now, where right now they'll be paying 75% of that fee. It will eventually morph into 90% of the fee in July of 2018. And then by July 2019, they will be paying full 100% of the fees to the city that are required. So we're talking basically about Section G on page 8 of the resolution in your packet, 04200, which identifies the school fees and impacts and what they're for. I'm not going to read that whole byline there, but it's in your packet. To date, Lockport hasn't received any accounting or reports of the use of these funds from the school districts. Recent activity from 33C, even changing some of their funds and pledging payments for potential revenues is a concern. Certainly, that would be a violation of what this resolution and funding was intended for. Recently, we've had comparable cities nearby in New Lenox and Homer Glen take actions to reduce school fees significantly, putting Lockport at a competitive disadvantage in regards to these school impact fees. And, we've kind of been debating this a little bit, where we feel Lockport has had and improved tremendous growth in the recent years, providing a good wealth and windfall in regards to increased real estate taxes and revenues to the schools, many of which provide no students, like the industrial parks that we've improved. And when you have nearby cities rebalancing or redirecting their fees, it's really come to a point where we need to find a way to make ourselves more competitive in the marketplace again. I know Chris Cazo is here from his development perspective in regards to these fees. Darren and I have talked about this at length. You know, we have a lot of different options we can take in this. The key factors are what the rate is, what the escalator is, and when would we make the changes. And so right now, we would, you know, my recommendation is we would make it effective January 1st. I think you can reduce these fees 50% or 100% if you wish. I think you remove the 4% escalator, and we kind of mold this back into what they do for the land cash, which is if they want to produce reports or financials that they can prove a need, that they need this money, they can come to the city every year just like they can with land cash and request that they be increased or rebalanced.
All right, so before we figure out any solutions, are there any questions about what this is about, any thoughts?
So I had asked Ben for, and he had sent me a list of all the residential unit summaries of what's potentially growing, and so or what's potentially coming, and so I color-coded them by school district, and if my numbers are correct, 33C has 338 homes potentially coming up. For me, that seems like a lot in the sense that we're reaching capacity on some of our buildings right now. So unless we're going to go back to half-day kindergarten or put additions to our schools, that concerns me. To me, this program seems like it paces our growth a little bit. And so if we open up the floodgates, I don't know how many kids 338 homes will potentially bring. And that would be the 31 units of Terrace of Cedar Crest that we just approved, those townhomes we did, 40 single-family in Parkside Estates, 140 single-family Sagebrook, the 92 townhomes Sagebrook, and 35 single-family of Oak Creek. And that's where I'm getting the 338.
Sounds about right.
And so just to keep that in mind, I do know that Hadley is like about 20 kids from capacity. That's where my daughter's at right now. So I don't know how many kids would come from that. I just think if we slow it down a little bit, all the kids from Broken Arrow, Willowwalk will age out, and then it's a great time to add more kids once ours go through the program. Fairmont, I know some of these are the Hidden Lakes is a senior concept and whatnot. It's 2,710. If I take out the senior concept with Hidden Lakes, we'll drop that another 540 units, so that's 2,000 units. I know there's the fees for Fairmont are much lower, so I'm not as concerned there since they have a lot of room for growth. Their school can hold 900, they're at 300. And so Reed, District 92, had 381. That could be a concern too for anybody representing that area. I don't follow it as closely. I do know some people there. They've told me that the schools there are getting more crowded. Milne and Kelvin Grove is 60 and Taft is 20 from the numbers I got.
What's the grand total?
Oh, I didn't add it all. I can add it all up here. Wait, maybe I have 3,509 extra units. If I don't know what number we use for a unit, but I figured if it was 2.5 people per house, that's an additional 8,772 people. We'd be making our town grow 8,700 people, in essence, or 8,800 people. I don't know what number do we use for growth on a house or apartment? Because some of this is apartments. 2.5 sound good, or is it lower?
2.79.
Okay, so it'll be a little higher. Figure maybe 9,000 extra people, and I don't know what time frame we're looking at, but that's a lot of growth if that comes down.
So what she's speaking about is the entitlements that we've already approved for residential in those regions in the city of Lockport. For example, down in Fairmont, there's, I don't know, 400 or 500 that have been entitled for 10 years but haven't had anything. You've got Wade Light's property has 300 or 400 more that have been there for 10 years and haven't anything spiked. So if they were all to come on board at the same time, you would have quite a bit of impact. But I think our growth has been steady and sustained. And I guess I'm not expecting all that to happen, but certainly I think that's why you leave yourself a vehicle every year where we can certainly readdress this as needed. I wanted to point out also that I put on your desk here, this is a brief PowerPoint just so you can see what I was talking about on a comparable community. I used a 4-bedroom home just as an example. You can look at the communities that we typically do a lot of comparisons with, from Woodridge to Lockport. We are currently the highest at over $24,000 on development fees. Now, that's all fees. That's water fees, city fees, school fees. But I wanted you to see just the competitive discussions we can have. And I think in 33C in particular is a little alarming, where you have homes in New Lenox going to the same district, 33C, that are paying $6,000 to $8,000 less. So that's pretty hard in the marketplace to make those kinds of decisions. If you look at the next page, this is the current Lockport school fees on a 4-bedroom home example again, where they're pretty much $5,565 per this ordinance for all the grade schools. The first 5, 33C, 89, 90, 91, and 92. And then District 205 is the high school, which is less at $1,865. You know, there's a debate there where, let's face it, 33C and 92 is where all the growth is. 89, 90, and 91 are pretty much landlocked, and there isn't a lot of vacant land that is producing new building homes. There is one from time to time, so the impact of them would be negligible anyway. So it's really affecting 33C and 92, and of course 205. If you look at your next page, these are the community school fees on a 4-bedroom home in the same comparable list. And please note that there are at least 4 communities on this list do not charge any school fees whatsoever. Several have set a sample mark of a flat rate of $2,500, and then Romaville and Homer Glen are both charging $5,220, and then City of Lockport with the high school and a grade school is at $7,430, again the highest on the list. I think you can consider setting flat fees. I would recommend percentages because, as Catherine mentioned, there are a lot of different entitlements out there, single families, attached, detached, apartments, things like that. We do have a very large spreadsheet that we track this all on, and it would be easier for enforcement that we just, if we are reset, if we're not setting it to 0, you would reset it at 25, 50, or 75%. It'll be fair across the board if you do choose to lower any of these. So again, in recap, we're trying to restore a competitive value in the marketplace in regards to some of our adjoining communities. I mentioned the example in New Lenox that it's almost $5,000 different for the same school district. If we cut these school impact fees by 100%, we would save $7,430 on a 4-bedroom home. You remove that escalator, and you can certainly allow the schools the dialogue each year in regards to what they may need for this. And although Lockport will still be the highest, we will be far more competitive at $17,344 when you compare the other people on this list. And again, you know, land cash has been reset, and I think it is time to find a way to reset these school fees.
So I just want to add one thing. With the growth numbers, the question then for us is, we will eventually get to 35,000 or whatever for our total population. Would you agree with that, Ben?
At some point, sure.
Yeah. So the question is, how fast do we want to get there? If we want to go fast, we can do this. It's not a problem. I just want to know how fast we want to go, because that's the decision we're going to make. If we want to move forward and go, okay, by the 2025, we're 30,000, and if that's if the council wants, that's great. I just want you to know the big picture to understand that we will eventually be a town of probably 35,000, right? Or
there are water models that say we could reach 40,000, but I don't think that's for 25 to 30
our little
years.
town grew. Yeah, so that's, I just
time.
want to make sure we all know that, because that caught me off guard a little bit when I looked at this math. And
I think that's also the district, not just the city limits, so there are areas that are unincorporated in those counts, so.
I think, and just for a sense of reality on that, I mean, when 4 years ago, we lowered our fees because our residential growth was anemic, and, you know, the number one thing that our restaurants and our retailers wanted to see before they would start even considering things like Lockport Square was, what are your housing starts? So we did, as a council, make a decision to lower those fees, and, you know, we cut some money. Now, we've been slowly scaling it back up, but when we did it, it wasn't, and that was even with a time limit on it that we sent out to our residential developers. We didn't see suddenly we jumped to 10,000 homes. I don't think that's the reality. The reality is we went from basically 0 to about 65, 100 houses or so. It's been a good, positive trajectory that we can then take that message to
the places like Marcus that we've done, and to Panera and these people, to yes, we have positive housing growth. That's what I've seen when we've lowered fees. Not this gold rush mentality, but I think we've put ourselves in a positive, not a negative. So looking at all the possibilities and what we would look like if all the entitled properties became residential, that's fine to look at, but that's definitely not something that's going to overwhelm us. Just as my observation over the last 4 years, that would suddenly come upon us like a whirlwind. But that's just my observation over the last 4 years after we lowered our fees.
If I could just interject. So I track the number of residential permits and number of units. And just as an example, in 2005, we only issued 405 permits. Now, I don't know what the unit count was because we didn't track that information then. From 2005, we went down to in 2006, 218, 2007, 117, 2008, 57, 2009, 24. Then in 2010, we did 36 permits for 36 units. 2011, 25 permits for 25 units, so those were all single family. 2012, 34 and 34. 2013, 29 and 29. In 2014, we issued 52 permits for a total of 59 units because there were some multifamily in there. 2015, we were at 35 permits with 42 units. 2016 was our best year at 82 permits for 116 units. And then for this year, as of the end of last month, we're at 54 permits for 84 units total. So that's just in line with what the mayor was saying, is that, you know, we haven't even come close to our, post or pre-recession numbers. And as the market is slowly increasing, we're not going to see that mad rush. Obviously, if we start seeing those numbers jump higher and higher over the years, and again, I'm tracking them per month, if they start to go up more and more, then obviously that would be a time to reevaluate this particular fees. But for right now, you know, the numbers are not showing an over excessive amount of units coming from Lockport.
Was Chris planning on speaking or no? What was that?
I don't know, I guess Chris, if you want to speak.
Did you want to speak? No? Oh, you're... Okay.
If you need me, I will.
I think this is a good discussion to have, right? And as I looked at this, I think, you know, I live in 33C, and it doesn't make sense for a builder and eventually passed on to a resident to pay more to 33C to live in Lockport than it does Homer Glen, or, you know, to 92 Lockport to Homer Glen. But I do think that the way this is being framed is quite frankly a little bit hypocritical, right? We are 8,000 more than anybody else on this list, and substantially more than most, right? And everybody has kind of their own fees and whatever it might be, and, you know, they all get there one way or another, but the city collects more fees than any other city on this list, right? It doesn't matter what you call it, right? 6 of these 10 don't have any additional city fees. We've got substantial ones, right? There's only one that has a water wastewater fee. That's $4,000 for Frankfurt. Ours is $7,500. We're the only ones with a municipal fee, right? I think it makes sense to figure out the school side and what makes sense, and we don't want to be non-competitive for our schools. But if we really think that we want these fees to be lowered, I don't think it's fair just to point the finger at the school, right? That is an option, but there's a lot of Lockport on here too that I think we should be looking at. And I don't have the perfect solution, but if we were to figure out we really need these fees to be $18,000 or we think it's $15,000, a good portion of that probably should come from some of our fees in here. And everybody has their own thing, right? Like Homer doesn't have their own water, wastewater, and that might be why they don't have one. It's different. There's not perfect apples to apples, but we're clearly getting quite a bit of this money. And so just to point it at and say schools should be zero, I think that rings a little hollow to me too. I think it's a fair conversation overall, but for this entire thing to be pointed at the schools doesn't feel like the right way to approach it either.
Yeah. If I can mention something real quick, I feel personally that I actually have to abstain from a lot of the discussion because some of the schools are my clients that are part of this, so I just wanted to bring that out. I've actually even told them that I'm going to abstain. What I do as my part is kind of the intergovernmental liaison, I do want to make sure that we are fair, that, you know, so I may interject to just make sure that we are fair and we are doing the homework on it and we're looking at all that stuff. But for the most part, I'll I will abstain.
I have some comments. I've been working on this for 4 years. First started back in the summer 2013 when I learned about this thing called the MAI appraisal for an acre of land. And at that time, an acre of land back in 2007 was appraised at $155,000 in Homer 33C and $150,000 in District 92. When I was having this discussion with a former city community development director, and he pulls down this pamphlet, and I said, well, what's the date? And he says, June 2007. This is June 2013. And I knew that the land was not worth $155,000 in 33C, nor was it worth $150,000 in 92. It was worth something less. And so when I read our development code, and I find out that on July 1st of every year, the school districts are supposed to provide the city of Lockport with a new appraisal of an acre of land. This appraisal is this land cash thing, which is a state mandated thing that they have to pay. It took me a year to go ahead and convince staff that we needed to go ahead and look at this. It took me another 2 years to finally go ahead and get the schools to actually go ahead and comply. They didn't want to comply. And now that land cash is down to $85,000 in 33C and $80,000 in 92. Why? Because that's what the land is worth. So between 2004 and during the down years when we were paying, when we had 25 home permits throughout the town, throughout the city, not just in specific areas, what was happening is these new homeowners and these developers were paying through the nose for what they shouldn't have, and what was happening is the schools did not comply with our development code. And then with the conversation that I had with Mr. Cazzo a year ago in August, we talked about the school facility fees, and for the longest time I thought he was talking about the appraisal. And then he handed me what we see here in this chart that we have, and what just his comments to me were it was created by ordinance by the city council, and the city council can amend or repeal or rescind these school impact fees. So what is important for every one of us to go ahead and understand is the reason why these fees were put in place back in 2004. And I want to reiterate, it's a significant residential development and student population growth within the city of Lockport and statutory planning area in the near future. It is not happening anymore. We went from 400 permits in 2004 or 5 to now, what was it, 53 this year. It no longer applies. School districts do not have the financial resources needed to provide new school buildings, building addition and improvements, school site improvements and related infrastructure to meet the needs and additional population would be generated by this development. Well, there isn't any current residential development being built today that is adding any financial burden, additional financial burden to the school districts, because that financial burden was done back in the early 2000s, not now. And that's the reason why when Broken Arrow was, that whole entire square mile was developed, that's why we have Butler School. And when Cedar Ridge and Parker Ridge and Victoria Crossing and whatever, and Homer Glen did over in their area, that's why we have Young School. We don't have any current residential subdivisions being built that are adding any financial burden. But what really got me with this whole thing is this, well, two things, was this 4% escalator. We've talked about this with other aspects. This 4% escalator, so when these residential developers were building 2 houses in their subdivision in 1 year and 3 houses the next year, the cost to go to the new home buyers was going up by 4%. And that was just plain wrong. But every year, the schools are to provide the city of Lockport with an accounting of how they're using that money. And they never have. That's the point. They've never complied with the ordinance. So, what do we do here? Okay, my suggestion is we eliminate school fees completely. We have already replaced the cash with the warehouse property tax. Okay, to give you an idea, okay, what we've done is, I have to go to a different screen here, but over the past 2 years, 7 buildings, 7 commercial buildings, the 4 out in the ML property, and the 3 over the Panatone property, which were not fully appraised assessed in 2016. Heritage Crossing has brought District 92, 2 years, total of $670,198. So we divide that number by 5560, okay, and we don't come up with remotely close to the cost of we have added cash. We have added cash to the school districts in property tax money. And so we subtract out the 5 or 6 houses that have been built over in Creekside South, okay, with 92, and maybe a couple other infills over there. We have given them more money than they would have received with this, okay? Over in 33C, the property taxes generated by Panatone in 2015 was 0. Statistically irrelevant because it was agricultural land. But in 2016, it was $295,976. So we just divide that by 5565 and come up with a number, okay? And that number that you come up with is a number of homes. The number of homes is 53. We haven't built we're not building 53 houses in District 90 and Homer 33C a year. We built. So that's the key. They are receiving more money from property tax than they are with this, okay? The high school, with the 7 buildings over this is 2 years now, they've received $594,651. So you divide that number by 1865, you come up with 238 houses. We haven't built 238 houses in the city of Lockport in the past 2 years. There is no financial burden that our current development is placing on the schools. We have replaced the school facility fee with more property tax money than they would have received with this. So essentially what's happening here is the schools are double dipping. Okay, they're getting the school facility fee, and they're getting this brand new property tax that, of course, did not exist 5 years ago. Okay, 5 years ago, there wasn't any property tax being generated by the warehouses. Now there is. All right, and so when we have 3 more buildings coming on, which will be partially or fully assessed in 2017 up at ML, all 3 buildings in two of the 3 buildings at the Panatone, or whatever it's called now, will be fully assessed this year with a greater partial assessment with building number 3. We have the 2 Exeter buildings coming on. They'll be receiving their occupancy sometime next year, so there'll be prorated assessment. And so what's happening here is we have generated for District 92 will be well over $1 million in property tax every year when the ML property gets, okay? It doesn't even include the $1 million or so that they're going to be receiving with Prologis, okay? And the $297,000, which will go up to about $400,000 with Panatone for District 33C. So we are not taking anything away from them, okay? And the fact that we've never received an account, we have no idea how any of these schools have ever used this money. It's supposed to be used for new buildings, which was, from the high school standpoint, 2004. We're looking at building 1 of possibly two new high schools, That's off the table. It's been off the table for at least 6 or 7 years. Okay, so why are we giving them $1,865? Okay, so it just doesn't make any sense. All right, we're not when another 100 houses or so at Sagebrook is not going to go ahead and cause 33C to go ahead and build another building. It just isn't. So, I believe that we need to eliminate the school fees completely. We've already replaced the cash, and I do agree with Jason. We need to look at some of the city of Lockport's fees. There are things like $225 for a police officer and vehicles. Well, our vehicles are paid for by federal seizure money, so why are we going ahead and we're taking that cash, okay? The library's getting $100 per household. Why? Okay? We're not putting any extra addition. We could probably knock off, the whole idea is to get down to about $14,000 to $15,000. Okay, and so my proposal, my recommendation is that we go ahead and completely eliminate the school facility fees, knock off some of the fees that the city charges too. Okay, $400 for a maintenance fee. So that's basically the cost of a lawnmower. Okay, do we really need that? Because remember, the city is also receiving extra property tax money from the warehouse buildings that we're seeing out there. And so I just think that if we're going to go ahead and move forward, we don't have any current subdivisions have been before us. The last one was Sagebrook. We don't have any other ones. The Fox Hollow and all that other stuff over in the Fairmont School District. That's been in the thought stage for what, 15 or more years now. There's nothing happening there. There isn't anything happening. We don't have any new land in Homer 33C other than we will once we go ahead and get that middle alignment removed. But that's 3 years from now. Okay, so I'm all for just eliminating, getting down to about $15,000 and become more competitive with other communities.
If I could just clarify, I'm sorry, thank you, Mayor. And I think Jason makes a good point about the wastewater impact fee, that we charge that, and there's the municipal impact fees, and we can break those down. I think there's certainly 3 big chunks. You've got the school fees, the water fund, the wastewater impact fee, which affects our water fund, just so you know where that money goes. And then all those municipal fees combined, they all go to capital. So if we do, I think that's a separate conversation. We can certainly tee that up to the committee of the whole for everyone to drill down into those specifics, the money for the police cars or whatever, but that all goes to capital. On the police cars, we do use federal seizures, but it's on a 50-50 basis, so we still use capital to match those grants. So I would certainly take the mayor and council's recommendation, and we can reduce it or eliminate it and finish that, and then we can, right after that, we can bring those discussions on the municipal fees and wastewater fees if we want to try to be even more competitive. So, but those are not addressed in resolution 04200 that we're requesting to amend, just so you know.
Do they have to be across the board all the same? I know
they don't have to be, but they probably should be consistent. I guess you can adopt them any way you want.
I would ask that,
school district.
we're looking at, right, we keep, every month, it's like something that we've had dug up from the past, is old documents, old whatchamacallit, we're like, why did previous councils do that? You've got an opportunity to clean something up right now, make it more simple, and not kill staff with trying to find some ambiguous document that has some calculations on it. Let's simplify it if we can. I do want to ask Ben, one thing you probably can explain is impact fees. Why did anybody ever start having impact fees? What's in
municipal wise? Just
municipal, school, everything, the
yeah.
entire gist of that.
Again, you're bringing residents into your town that you're building homes. They use the streets, they use the toilets. You know, we spend a lot of money in operations, processing water, creating water, drilling wells. All those impacts. That's why they call them an impact fee. residents create those impacts. If you only had 5,000 residents, you wouldn't have as much need for those fees. If you have 25,000 residents, you have a bigger need to sustain. You're about to hear conservatively $70 million request for capital improvements coming forward to the city of Lockport that we don't have full funding for. So I'm happy to present a debate in regards to municipal fees, but that all goes to capital. I just think you have to be cognizant of what you're reducing, especially on the water fund side. The reason, again, and I think Jason spoke to it as well, the reason we have that fee is a lot of these communities on here don't have those expenses. They pay more per water. Some of them are on Illinois American from Lake Michigan water. They pay a higher rate, where we're collecting these fees to help offset the cost that we need to provide water. So city services cost money. I make speeches at schools all the time. Did you brush your teeth today? Did you drive down the street on a school bus? That costs money. And so that's what those impacts are about. I don't know if I answered your question, but.
It was just a general statement, so everyone kind of hears.
You develop, if you don't do those things, then you're going to have to raise real estate taxes, or there has to be a mechanism to keep the city operational. A big bulk of your expenses are on personnel, staffing, police departments. So it's operations and it's capital. I mean, those are the big things that the city spends money on.
If I could also add too, this all kind of started back in the early 2000s, where a lot of school districts and then park districts jumped on board because taxes are in arrears. So they were collecting land cash, but because you move into your house before you actually pay taxes to those, full taxes based on improved property to these facilities, they needed to be able to have some money to help support the fact that there were people using these facilities without the taxes catching up. And so that's why a lot of the school districts and the park districts jumped on board at that time, because housing was explosive and they were trying to play catch up with the residents they were getting before they were able to get the actual taxes.
All right, any other thoughts?
Chris does.
Somebody set a timer.
Hello, everybody. How are you? I'm Chris Cazzo. I'm developer of Oak Creek subdivision. I got a lot of new faces up here, so I don't recognize everybody, but welcome aboard, as they say. I've been in these halls of Lockport here for probably pretty close to 25 years, and the school facility fee came amongst the growth that was explosive, as you know, back in the early 2000s, and they talked up their lag fee, where the taxes are in arrears, where they don't have the money to handle the new students that are populating their schools, and they got most towns to buy into it, and here we are today. Since that, particularly in Homer 33C, where Oak Creek is located, they have also initiated another fee for new residents that aren't moved in yet. They haven't occupied their home, or we haven't pulled an occupancy permit. They charge them $3,500 because they're just for another fee. So not only are they getting money from any industrial property or commercial property that doesn't, and hurt the schools in any which way, they're also getting our school facility from us, and now they're getting it from the resident that's moving in. So I don't know how you want to, or what you want to call it, but it certainly doesn't seem fair to any new resident moving into the city of Lockport, and we should be cognizant of what we're doing here. Overall fees are a little high. I totally agree. I've been fighting this for a long, long time, but the school facility fee is completely out of control. When they lowered the valuation of the land, they just slid it right over to the school facility fee, plus added $400 more onto it for a 4-bedroom home. Ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. It would never be tolerated in business. It should not be tolerated here. Thank you.
Chris, can I ask you a question about that $3,500? That's not for all new residents. That's only for the residents who want to bring their kids to 33C because they haven't been able to move in yet because their home's not finished in your case, right? So that's a pretty relatively few and far between example, most likely, right? I'm sure there's a few a year or something like that, but it's not.
That's per student.
Yeah, but that's not in every resident type thing, or even in every new home.
No, but that's what they're talking about, that lag time, okay, that, well, you don't have an occupancy till, say, whatever, October 30th. So no matter what, you're going to pay $3,500. They won't give you any of that money back.
Yeah, because they treat you like an out-of-district, essentially.
Exactly. I mean, you know,
Close.
instead of being welcoming, you know, to the neighborhood, come on, all right? We're not here to hurt the schools. The schools are great, okay? I think we pay enough in taxes here, and we don't even touch that subject, but the school facility fee is run rampant, and you can see they have, after you lower the assessed evaluation, okay, they just turn around and just say, no, we're going to pass it on over here.
Yeah, what they did is they raised it 24%, which is in violation of this ordinance. And their explanation is, oh, we just played catch-up. And it's just flat out wrong.
And Homer Glen is eliminated, New Lenox is eliminated. I don't know, you know, I understand, but we're not going to get 20,000 residents in 5 years here. Okay, it's just not going to happen. You can tell by the permit numbers. And if it does increase, we'll do the same thing.
All right, so I mean, you know, listening to it and trying to wrap my head around it, the fees that are collected here are meant for buildings, right?
Yes.
That's what these are for. Now, Jason, you made a comment about like the fees that we collect, you know, they're high too, but we actually are using those fees for exactly what we collect them for. No one can argue that we haven't done a ton of infrastructure work.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. And listen, we need money for our water fund, right? Capital. I'm not disputing that. My only thing is like, and I don't really know. I feel like we're operating a little blind here. Like, okay, we're at 24,774 today. What makes us competitive? 18, 20, 16? Like, we have room to trim too if we knew like this is sort of where we need to be. You know, we talk about like 200. I think it's $225 for a police car. Okay, fine. It takes 100 homes to buy a police car. That feels a little unnecessary, right? And so I'm not saying that it's not going to good use, and you know, we do have, like Ben mentioned, we've got an ambitious CIP, and we need to find ways to fund that. I'm not trying to just blindly cut every dollar we could take in, but if there's a number that we need to get to, or if there's a sweet spot we need to get to, I think we probably need to look across this page, not just at one fee. That was just.
Well, I mean, in theory, all the money that's been collected for these impact fees for the school should be in some nice account somewhere for a rainy day for a new building, right? That's what it's supposed to be for.
You would think.
Right. We haven't.
You would think.
Right. I mean, by ordinance, they're supposed to show us these things. We've never seen it. So, again, it goes back to the monies that we do collect. You know, like I said, no one's going to argue that we haven't spent it on infrastructure. Have these been going to new buildings? And I guess like what Darren's point was, you know, if I'm hearing it right, I'm just kind of trying to wrap my head around all this stuff, is that with the amount of growth that we've had, even when we lowered our fees, you know, it's still 50 houses at a time. It's not enough that's going to blow out anybody that they need a new building. And just the normal attrition of people coming and going as they grow seems to be able to keep our population in a building steady enough that there's not urgencies. So this is me trying to wrap my head around it. You know, so what do we do? Are we lowering fees out of, if we do so, out of principle? Like, you guys don't need any of this money, you're not building new buildings. Or do we lower it to say, that's fine, I understand the reason for it, but let's at least lower it to be competitive with neighboring communities. For instance, if we were to lower this 75%, that would put us somewhat in line with these other communities. We wouldn't be 0, but we wouldn't be 2,500. We would be, you know, we'd be on the lower end, which would make us competitive. So is that why we would lower fees if all? So I guess in my mind, it's like that's really the question what it comes down to. What's the appropriate number to reach, and why would we make that decision?
Well, we have replaced the fees, the school facility fee, with exponentially more cash that they were receiving. Okay, so if Mr. Causo only built 10 houses, just to go ahead and make the math easy, that's $55,000. Okay, but we have provided 33C with $300,000 in new property. Remember, the school facility fee is a one-time fee. This $300,000 plus another $100,000, that's $400,000. That's every year forever. We've already replaced it exponentially.
I would say the only place, if we're going to be, really dig down into this, the only place that that's potentially different is, so you've got District 89, 90, and 91, who just don't have, they don't benefit from the industrial growth that we've had. No. But at the same time, they don't have a ton of land that this would impact. They don't have a ton of undeveloped land, with the exception of District 89. They have that entire, Hidden Lake subdivision that has the potential to bring in. Plus, there's still other properties on there that are slated for residential.
I would submit that in the event that this Hidden Lakes or whatever it's called, that would be part of the whole PUD process. It would be a negotiation or PUD process if somebody wants to go ahead and build 200 homes on that square mile over there in the Fairmont School District, then what they do is they negotiate with the school district, okay, and then the school district then will provide us with that number when somebody actually closes on a house and gets occupancy. Okay, and that's a far more real during the PUD process, okay, during the development process.
Hold on a second. I would let's talk about that. If we remove this ordinance or their portion of it.
To give you an idea, this is what happened.
They wouldn't negotiate anything. Chris
this is
is
what happened
standing
with
here
Lago
right
Vista.
now. You take this away from him, he's not going to go to 33C and say, well, I'm building a whole new tract of land. What do you want as a taxes?
Yeah.
But this is what happened in Lago Vista. Lago Vista, their deal with Fairmont was $65,000.
In this
Total.
fee, and this is.
So that was that's what they negotiated with it, and there was independent of this thing here.
But it
total.
replaced this.
That the deal that they had with Lago
lower than
Vista
this. Right.
replaced this thing here, and they reached that 65,000 about 2 years ago. So all the 30 or so houses have been built in the last 18 months over in Lago Vista, which I see as I leave my house every day. Okay, they're not paying any impact fee to Fairmont, and I would propose after we eliminate these fees that as a development, if a development of 800 houses, and really the only time it's ever going to happen again in the city of Lockport is in 3 years when we get to go ahead from Will County. They've eliminated the middle alignment. Now we have that tract of land that I don't know how many houses can be put in there. That's west of Victoria Crossing West. That goes all through, all behind. Okay, that could be 1,000 houses. Different story, but that's at least 3 years away.
But Darren, if there's no fee associated with them, then they're not going to get anything, right? If it's $5,000 a house, then they could go negotiate 33C and say, we'll give you $4,000 a house, right? But to Jim's point, if there's, and I'm not saying that there even needs to be a fee, but if there's no fee associated, there's no negotiation because
no
there's
one's
nothing
come
there.
Up. Right.
You're never going to
Nobody
jump at
volunteers to pay
it. That wouldn't be
more than
part of the PUD process to say, oh, by the way, here's all our codes, here's all our and we're going to throw on an extra impact fee for you.
Well, they would have to go ahead and get approved by us now, wouldn't it? By whomever's going to be here in 10 years.
Well, I mean, in some respects, like up till now, when we've had a development come in, I've called the two districts, the high school and whatever grade school district it affects, and I brought them in and say, how do you guys feel about this? Is this going to, this is how many kids you guys assume will come from this, and is that a problem or not a problem? And, I've tried to have that open dialogue, and everyone's, so far, because they've been, not huge developments, they've been, no, we can handle that. That's not a problem. If, we continue with our dialogue this way, and let's say, for instance, the middle route properties come online, and it's like, hey guys, here's the next one, this might be a big one. And then they tell me, yeah, that's going to be problematic, can we revisit the impact fees? That's fine, as long as there's a cooperative council and mayor when that happens, right? And that's a nice thing, as we started with our intergovernmental committee, Jim, we try to make sure we have that kind of dialogue. So it's like, okay, if this is a development that's large enough to impact you guys, do we go back and bring up this fee? Because it's going to, it's very likely going to add the necessity for a new school, say, for instance, like Butler was and stuff. And I'm happy to have those conversations as long as I'm here. And I think we've done that up till now, but that's one way of handling it. putting that out there for us as we talk.
But future boards, will they do it? Do we set something in place for
Right.
future boards? Do we
And you know how it
we
goes.
leave
You
those
come on this
breadcrumbs?
board, you have no idea, you're starting from ground zero, you're like, I don't know, what's a
Dan
school
will still
impact
be
fee?
here. I
right?
will not.
I won't be here.
But going back to your comment about like, why are we doing it? Are we looking to get, our fees in closer line with our neighbors? I still believe that is, yes, we do need to get our fees more in line because you come back to us constantly saying, if we're going to get that retail growth, we still have to have the housing growth, the housing starts. And this is one way to guarantee us these housing starts if we're going to keep fighting to try to get retail.
It doesn't guarantee it, but
Well,
it certainly has put us in the right
it puts-
direction.
I mean,
Can I intervene one second? It's not like you're eliminating the school fee completely, just the school facility fee.
Right, and that's
Right.
the other
I-
part of
that's
this.
like-
The schools are going to make plenty of money
You
on
get
the
land
regular
cash.
The
property
land
tax.
cash, the land cash is set up by the EAVs and mandated by the state. So, I mean, that's why there is an impact fee.
Yeah, I understand.
okay?
They're still
The
getting
school
their money.
facility fee was generated right here, okay, and Will County, and each town adopted it, and.
It's a great point. They actually get $10,000 of that $24,000 right now.
So,
Land cash and school facility fee.
I think when we, if we decide to go ahead and be more competitive, I think we really have to see why their fees are that amount. Like for New Lenox, for instance, are they so low because they're trying to get kids into a school that is empty? Are they just trying to reach anything to get there? I mean, what are we comparing?
New Lenox has done this in Homer Glen recently, and they're doing it to be competitive, right? I mean, they've controlled these fees from the start, and I would say, Lockport wasn't necessarily controlling these or guiding these for the last, decade, and we're trying to catch up and exert some of that influence where we think it's appropriate.
I feel that also, just speaking of New Lenox built up so quickly, they must have done something to generate this growth that New Lenox had. Because I remember New Lenox really wasn't that big of a town, and now you have commercial, you have housing, you have everything that helps with all these taxes for the taxing bodies, so they did the right thing, I think, by lowering them to attract all this commercial.
The problem with it is they just jumped the gun on a new school building, and that's the rub with that.
Yeah.
We could have very well been that same city scenario. We were that close, many times with a referendum, so.
Close, yeah.
And really, the only thing we can affect is the, our own fees and the school facility fee. Those are the only things we really have control over.
Well, I mean, like Darren said, Darren spearheaded the work to get the school land cash fee already.
That's
Substantially.
settled by statute and by the MI appraisals each year, yeah.
So is an option to say, currently we're 7430, can we say, let's make it 2,500 for 2018 and then relook at it every year? Can we do something like that, or is this an
Yeah,
all or
my
nothing?
suggestion is to put the onus back on the schools to justify that school fee if they need it in the future. Whether you set it to 0 or 50% is up to you. I just recommend percentages over flat fees because we equate it across the type of entitlements that we have. So, but yeah, anything is up for discussion or a vote in regards to how you do it, but my recommendation was you use a percentage of whatever it is.
Ben, explain that. So why percentages
Sure.
over each school? Because they're all different, then we just talk about a percentage now?
We have technically, we have a different table for each school district, although many of the line items are the same, but there are differences. We can't speak to how they were established or why they're different over a 25-year period, but they are. And so if you try to set just $2,500 for a grade school and $1,000 for the high school, I mean, it can be done. It's just going to be more laborious and trying to figure out how that works out. And especially if you build a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, those are all different fees too. I gave you a 4-bedroom example. 5 bedrooms are even more and 2 bedrooms are less. So if you're all of a sudden, you might be charging somebody for a 2-bedroom fee even more than you might have been earlier if you set a standard fee across the board. So I think if you do percent-based, it's the way to go if you're going to charge anything. I think it's reasonable to set it back to 0 and take out the escalator and address it in the future.
right, so let me ask you one last thing. If, Darren, you know more about this than most of us. According to when this was done, there was supposed to be a yearly audit or
That's what it says. It says that they're supposed to go, it's supposed to be used for new buildings, building improvements, and it was, the out was, and if the students generated by this house causes an increase in cost to the school to educate that child, I'm paraphrasing here, I could read it, but I'm paraphrasing, then they could go ahead and use that money if they go ahead and give us an accounting. They never have. They just put it in their capital fund, okay? And
So
that's all they did.
So one way of doing this then is we say, just putting it out there, let's say we decide to reduce this by 70%. That brings us down about, just about 2,500, maybe a little less. We do it with a percentage. And then we demand our audits. It's like, I need to see how you guys are using this money. If you're going to convince me that we either need to zero this out or go back up again over time, we haven't ever seen the audit. We have no idea where the money's being used.
I'd much rather zero it out, have them show, and then they can actually go and show us the audit.
They could show the need annually, just like they do with the MIA appraisals.
But remember we have provided the high school with $600,000 the last 2 years. We have provided.
And that's not one-time money like this is.
This is every year.
And let's face it, they're still going to get property taxes from homeowners. I mean, it's not like this is all the money they get.
And also, they have provided us with $0 in new revenue over the past few years, and they'll never provide the city of Lockport with new revenue. We will be providing them new revenue every year. When we build the movie theater, okay, the high school gets cash for that. 92 gets cash for that. When Panera Bread opens up and they go full, that's cash to the high school. That's cash to the to 92. Okay. When the hotel gets built, that's cash to the high school and it's cash to 92. And we build that whole Lockport Square up, that's cash to the high school, that's cash to 92, and in the far eastern portion, that's cash to 33C.
And there's other small areas too. I mean, every time we do a facade grant and we begin to increase the property value of the buildings in the downtown, or as we see the property values downtown coming back up, as we've done a lot of efforts to attract new building owners, new property owners. That's all money that goes to, every time that money goes up, even with our TIF district, it was kind of a poorly negotiated TIF, the high school still gets a lot of money out of that.
Oh, yeah, that was
we do spend money to help get them more money. There's no doubt about it.
Can I ask a question, going back to this percentage versus flat fee? Is there, I guess what's going in my head is there a cost difference between a student at 33C versus 92 or 89?
You'd have to ask them, yeah.
Right, I mean, did the schools have a part with setting this impact fees, or
we provided it for them?
So there's no logic, right? I think we need more homework on it. To me, if it's a flat fee, the same student at 33C should be the same as 92, whatever impact is there.
Well, the impact fee it's $55.65 to each of the school districts. It is, but we don't know what the cost is. We don't know what it costs to educate those kids, okay? Of course, if you have more money in the school district, like 92 and 33C, but specifically 92, they've got more money than anybody in town.
Okay? I think the fear seems to be, are we providing a hardship to the schools by changing this? And I think the answer is no, that with the new growth and the new revenues they get from the real estate taxes, that are far exceeding these revenues that they would get for the school facility fees. I think if you don't do zero and you want to do a percentage, I think I'd work with staff to come back with a table that gets close to those percentages. It might actually be kind of easier to set those flat fees in different areas based on a percentage. And having staff whisper in my ear on that. So if you choose zero, we can do that. If you choose a percentage, we'll come back with a new table that's close to those percentages, as equitable as we can. But
it just has to, if we make it zero, and then we can't really demand an audit because the audit comes when we're giving them money. Now, if we zero it, it's more like, hey, if you guys ever want more money, if you ever want this to come back, you should show us an audit. That's different from having the ability to say, we want an audit. It's part of our, we haven't demanded it up till now, we really should have. But if it's completely zeroed out, they don't have to go through the trouble of making an audit.
Well, they're gonna have to go ahead and make the explanation why they need these school facility fees in addition to the new property tax that they're gonna be receiving forever. And in my opinion, they do not have an argument that was gonna be able to support taking these fees. It's as simple as that. So my proposal is that we zero the school impact fees out, okay? And then, so we can just rescind and repeal that part of the current 2004 ordinance. And then if we want to go ahead and look at the city's impact fees, because remember, we're the ones that are cleaning the streets, we're the ones that are putting in the water mains, the sewer mains, okay, we're the ones that are fixing the streets. It's a different story, okay? If we want to look at that, but right now, I just think that in a couple of weeks, we need to just go ahead and repeal that portion, zero it out, and just be done with it.
Well, if we're going to put something up for a vote next week, but I need something specific. So I guess we need a little bit of a straw poll. How many people feel like zeroing it out is appropriate? Put your hand up. 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then the rest of you guys feel like now the rest of everyone is just a percentage.
Jim's out of it.
I'm out, so.
You're a percentage. Anybody else?
I would just like to make sure that the school is aware of the elimination. If they can't prove it.
Well, they'll find out tomorrow.
Well, I have no problem taking it out, but, you know, I want to make sure they know you're going to potentially lose whatever it is. 50,000 a year, 40,000 a year, 20,000 a year, whatever the amount is.
What if they're using it?
What if they're using it? Exactly.
Of course they're using it.
But we haven't seen the audit for how
Right, we
they're
haven't
using
seen it. So that's why I was asking, can we do it for a year? And I go, no problem,
Yeah.
take it out for this, for the year. If you can prove that you need the money, we'll put it back in next year. But for the meantime, we don't know if you've been using it. I mean, I don't know what the schools are doing with it. I don't know. I don't want to eliminate something.
Well-
Yeah, I don't want to eliminate something that they're going to turn around and tell me, okay, your tax bill's going up.
Well, we had a school district said that, well, they want to use this money for bond reduction payments. They can't use it for bond reduction payments, but that's what they were going to use it for.
It does seem like it's just been kind of taken advantage
It's
of.
just been taken advantage of.
My only fear is the scenario that Darren said is, once we get rid of the middle alignment between Victoria Crossing and Panatone, there could potentially be a lot of homes. And if we zero this,
We
then
can
it's zero.
Then that council in the future, in 5 or 6 or 10
always
years.
bring
But
it
if
back.
we leave it at $2,500 or something, at least we're giving some sort of impact.
We can't continue to go ahead and penalize the new people. We can't say, well, what if this and what if that? What we know right now is.
No, you have to prepare for the future, right? I mean,
I
I mean,
mean,
this was like 28,000.
If I can interject one thing.
We're going to get it lower than that, but where do we want to stop?
Okay, if I can interject one thing, please. What new developments have come online since MI Homes came to town?
None.
Okay, here's how developers look at things.
No, they're not
All right,
online.
first they look at the cost of the land, and the second thing they ask, what are the permit fees? All right, and believe me, you scare more away than you take in. That's why it's not happening, and that's the truth. Okay?
And I believe that, and that's why.
And this is a part of it. This is something that this has been outrageous. Okay, especially when New Lenox cut it. They didn't have as big a discussion as you have. Okay, Homer Glenn's cut it, but we're having this big discussion over it. I should say you guys are. All right, it puts you at a disadvantage.
Well, I'm sorry, Chris, if you feel like us discussing a topic is inconveniencing you, but.
No. I'm just saying that New Lenox, they had very little talk about it, okay? Homer didn't have any talk about it, and here we are, okay? And I've been trying, and I went to the schools 2 years ago, and tried to say, hey, listen, here's what's going on, all this. They didn't want to have anything to do with it, okay? And it puts us all at a disadvantage.
But this was thousands more 2 years ago, right? We're talking about lowering it again. I'm asking what our sweet spot should be.
No. Actually, their fee is up higher
Well, the
now.
land cash fee was double what it is.
Yeah, I know, but now they flipped it over to the other side.
Yeah, yeah.
They just flipped it over.
Well,
Fair enough, but right, Chris, I understand your point of view, and I don't disagree with it at all, right? And you are adding to the conversation. You also directly benefit if we lower it, right? And so we have to have the conversation.
Oh, sure.
And if
Oh, I agree with that. I mean,
if other areas didn't have a conversation, that's fine, right? But we're talking about taking money away from a taxing district that is not ours, right? And so we're having an appropriate conversation.
Sure.
I think you're hearing pretty unanimous, like, hey, we've got to do something.
Well, no, I agree, and I respect that. And
we're just trying to figure out what works for us.
I totally agree. I totally agree. But when it was, the whole reason why it was enacted, though, was because of that lag time. And then they turn around and they bill these people for, if they're not occupied in their home, at $3,500 per student. It just seems absurd.
Which we, of course, had no say in.
You know, and that's all. The discussion's wonderful. I mean, I totally agree. It's the way it's supposed to be.
And I think that 24%, let's just throw it all in there, because that's just ridiculous.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have no problem cutting the 24 and more, right? I'm just trying to figure out where we
I'm just
where we
talking
go.
about what 33 just recently did.
I know.
I think one of the issues here, if we can discuss, is the legality, right? The what if then, right? The middle route, all that stuff. So whatever you set it at, I think that what I'm hearing from Jason was saying that we can institute it back quicker as opposed to a future council doing it. So I think what I'm hearing is you're saying set it, waive everything until it's a future thing, and then it can be instituted later, right? We're waiving all those.
I don't have any problem.
This is a city-controlled ordinance. You can take it away or bring it back whenever you want.
Which is my other question. How did 33C raise it for you without us it coming through
Because there
us?
was a 4% escalator
Yeah.
in the original agreement. Apparently, they forgot to increase it 4% for the last 6 years, so they said, oh, let's just catch up, and they did 24%.
I know, but how did it not come through this
Because
city?
the way the ordinance is written, it doesn't have
They don't have
to.
to.
And that's part of the whole problem with this, is it
I
feels
thought it
like
had
it's
come
being
through us.
abused.
They collect
Right.
fees directly to
Right.
the schools.
Right.
Okay.
So I guess my only thing would be this, about going to zero. Just my observation. Because I know how government works, right? I've been up here for 4 years. We're made of a bunch of amateurs. Nobody up here is an expert. It's the way it is. It's the way America works, and that's okay. That's the country we love, and that's the way it should be. This council will turn over, right? And then the next group will be just as baffled as everyone else. What are you talking about? Impact fee, assessment, land cash? No one's going to know what they're talking about. That's the way it is, right? So if we eliminate this thing, right, and then that, let's say 4 or 5 years from now, that middle alignment property, a development that's large enough to actually
Have an impact.
that nobody up here is going to know to do this, right? No one's going to think about an impact study, or it's going to be like, how are we going to start that up? It's going to start from scratch. So I think leaving it in some percentage, low as we want to go, so that it's there, and it doesn't have to be reinstituted. It doesn't have to be reinvented by a future council that doesn't even know what that is, right? I think it's easier for us to deal with future large impact developments that, you know, could come online. And quite frankly, it's probably one of the few that are left. There might be a few in that unincorporated area south of 159th Street, but that's pretty much, you know, most of the bulk of what's left out there. But at least it gives a future council, I think, some groundwork to do something. And even if we reduced it 80%, right, it's still a mechanism that's in place that could be, you know, reinstituted and and demanding the audit now from a standpoint of strength, as opposed to, hey, why don't you guys send us one if you want to revisit this one day? It's like, this is something that we could still ask for and expect, because even that, we forgot, there's a classic example how we all don't know what's happening. We didn't even know to ask for the audit until you started digging, right, Darren? Like, we're going to be getting the audit. That's not going to change in the future, right? New members come up here. So that's my feeling. Reduce this thing, even if we go 80%, you know, that way we're more competitive than any of these other cities, except for the zero people, but at least it gives us the opportunity to be able to say, and, you know, for all I know, Woodridge and Lisle are landlocked anyway, so who cares if it's zero? You know, I think they are pretty landlocked. They don't have any room for giant residential developments anymore, so the idea that they're zero isn't necessarily because they're magnanimous. It's probably because they don't have any land to develop anyway. So I think going to zero doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
That's fine, I just think we need to keep some.
Okay, let's go with a 90% cut.
You guys feel like doing something like that is worthwhile? It keeps this in play?
Is 80 keeps us competitive?
Well, my feeling at the moment right now is we reduce it enough that it's still there, so that it could still be a tool that's used by us and the school districts to offset impact, not necessarily, and that's really the only reason I'm going, and I would say 90 is fine, right? Is because we're just keeping the mechanism alive.
Are you good with a reduction 80%?
Yeah.
You good with reduction 80%?
So, Christina, who are you comparing, what town are you comparing it with when you said 80%?
Okay.
That's where I was kind of at the
Okay, okay, okay.
2,500, if I'm right.
25,000. Oh, you mean on the, yeah.
Oh, 80% of the school facility.
Just under about 1,500.
2,500
What would be?
If you take, I believe, is this what we're talking about? Of 7,430, if you take it at 20%, you're looking at 1,486.
There you go.
So,
Total.
yeah, that's,
Total?
yeah.
What?
That's fine. I'm good with that.
We should, if they need that money, then of course.
They might be here, they could be here in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So you're saying,
They'll be here in 2 weeks.
And they might give us the honor.
There's going to be the thing in 2 weeks, right? If anybody, right, and part of our governmental committee, I mean, Ben, I would ask that you reach out to all the business managers, all the districts.
I have a meeting with 33C on Monday. So.
Okay. And then the other part is, let's leave that out. Leave us an out and leave the districts an out. So if we think that that middle alignment is going to go, then, and there's something that may cause an impact, what's an impact to you?
Well, if we
10 homes,
reduce it
50
by 80,
homes?
if we reduce it by 80%, they're still getting 20%. There's the out.
No, I understand, but somebody comes in for that, and I'm planning and zoning, right? Now, that's my hat on. Somebody comes in, says, Chris comes in and says, I want to buy that piece of property, I want to put in 200 homes. Thank you for that reduced fee of 20% that's there. And the schools are going to say, you're going to have 200 homes, I'm going to have to build a brand-new school. What's our thing? And then we're going to say, well, we're going to have to increase our impact fees. Chris is going to say, I can't build then, this deal is done.
And so
And
be it.
that's his choice.
And then so be it.
Or you work it into a
Just as long as
PUD.
we're discussing it and everyone's fine with it.
Yeah.
So,
Because I think that is part of our responsibilities, like Catherine said in the beginning. We don't want to overwhelm our city, right? If there's a need for a new school and a builder wants to build that many houses at once, then that's appropriate to raise that number up. Perfectly appropriate.
It's a negotiation just like we would do with any
I was thinking-
development
Right,
agreement.
most of your developments coming in are all PUDs now, right? So you got all kinds of tools.
Yeah,
to-
we still have plenty of control.
So,
I think it would be.
Can I kind of wrap up the consensus here so I know what staff's doing? We're going to eliminate the 4% escalator. We're going to come up with a flat fee that's pretty close to somewhere between 80 and 90%. We'll work on that. Let us massage that. It could be 82%. Who knows what the number will be, but I think I'm hearing you're pretty comfortable.
82% reduction.
Yes, so that 80% would be removed, and then we'll work on our tables, and Pam and I and Lisa, and we'll present something for the city council in 2 weeks that has that fee about those numbers, so.
Well, we don't have to vote on it in 2 weeks either. We can have it at committee of whole again and
Up to
go
you.
and have a discussion, and 2 weeks after that.
Up to you.
In the meantime, can we find out from the SNAP?
yeah,
Well, we're going to hear from them.
you're going to hear from them. And then, and also part of this would be a solid annual audit. We want to see whatever
Doing
percentage is
school
left,
fees.
how it's being used and what the needs are and these kinds of things.
Well, then within that language, within that how you use the money language, then we have to put that language in a new ordinance or an amended ordinance that specifically says by their fiscal year, which will be beginning July 1.
like we do with land cash.
That we need to go ahead and have an accounting for the previous fiscal year.
If
how
they're
to
going to
use that
request
money.
for an increase, they should provide the accounting at the same time they provide any MIA appraisals for the land cash. I would
We'll
sync
put it
those
in our
two.
phone reminders next year, so we don't forget about the audit.
I'm sure they'll be all over those dates, I'm sure. And then,
Thank you.
All right, good talk, everyone, thank you.
effective January 1st.
Yeah, it was good, it's a thoughtful, important discussion. All right, what else we got? Dun, 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 dun. Oh my God, now we gotta get into the levy for crying out loud?
Oh, joy.
You guys know I'm fast. I don't take up a lot of your time. Okay, property tax levy. I want to just go through a little history, a couple things that we talked about 2 weeks ago, but just to bring it back to everybody's attention. This is how the property tax bill is divided. So what we're looking at today is only the city portion. The schools are 62% of the tax bill, fire's 11%, the city's 9%. Okay, so that's the piece that we're talking about. Oops, going the wrong way. I told you guys 2 weeks ago that property taxes make up 40% of our revenues. So I just want to make sure I point that back out again. And then for the new people, and just a reminder for those that have been around for a while, how the levy is created. So the county is the one who determines the assessed value. We get those figures from them as preliminary estimated numbers in August. Then we determine what the CPI is, and that's 2.1% this year. Last year it was a 0.7, so we've got some increase there. Then I propose the levy, which is the documents that were inside your packets. We're reviewing it today at the Committee of the Whole. We'll have a public hearing in 2 weeks on November 15th to get any input from the public. Then we'll be seeking council to approve it at the December 6th meeting, and then we have to submit the information to the county before the end of December. So again, the reminder, these are estimates. So these figures that we're using, we don't have final numbers, and we won't have final numbers until the spring, okay? So the calculations that I'm using are based on very preliminary numbers. There are still tax appeals that are out there for some of the warehouses that are appealing what their EAVs are. That could significantly change what we have, okay? So the numbers that we have are just based on trying to capture what we can based on the preliminary numbers. The new growth that we're looking at is 42 million. That's as high as it's been for, last year was 17 million, just for perspective. So 42 million, that's a big deal for us this year. This is what the levy funds. So there's a number of things that we have on there: general administration, the streets, police, the audit, all the way down to our debt payments that are funded by property taxes. So this is a chart I like to show to let you guys know what the EAV has been looking at and where it's been and where it's going. So we're estimating the EAV to be up at 2008 levels. So we can see that for the last 4 years we've been on a rise, which is a good thing for us. So we're looking at about a $79 million increase to the EAV this year. So some of it is made up of the assessments that the assessor did onto each of the homes, and then the other 42 million of new property.
Oh, wow.
Now here's what the total rate. So that includes the debt as well. So you can see that again we're looking at, for the 4th year in a row, the ability to decrease our tax rate. So there's an inverse relationship between what happens to the EAV and what happens to the tax rate. So as the EAV goes up, the tax rate's going to go down. Okay? So you can see this is the 4th year in a row. So, that to me is important, to see that we're continuing to lower that rate. So the total levy that we have in front of you is 6.3 million. We will not get all of that 6.3 million, but we have to levy at a rate high enough to capture what actually is going to happen when those final numbers come out. If we don't levy for that, then we lose out, okay? So we always put in extra, and all municipalities do. They levy for a higher amount just because we're working off of estimates. We do not have final numbers. So, if we're asked to do that, we want to be able to capture what we can. But this levy was prepared to capture both the growth and the CPI this year. And then there was also a $19,000 increase for the additional bond that we took out. So that's the difference between last year's debt payments and this year's and next year's debt payments. So this is the part that everybody's usually interested in. If their house last year was worth $250,000 and they had a 3% increase in the EAV by the township assessor, their house would now be worth $257,500. Okay, so using the equalization factor, their new EAV, the tax rate that I just showed you guys that we're looking at, the anticipated number, if the levy gets approved for this amount, a $250,000 house last year would see an annual decrease in just their city portion, because that's all we're talking about. We can only control the city portion, of $7.96 in their tax bill. Okay, so that's capturing new growth and CPI. That's what they would see as a decrease in their tax bill. Okay, for it to be a break even, so for them not to have an increase or a decrease in their city portion, their EAV would have had to increase by 4.1% or more. All right, it's all over the place. I know Darren's done a lot of work. Catherine has shared with me some of the work she's done. I've looked at, I always look at where it looks like for you guys, because you guys are all over the place. You guys are a good representation of city to see where it's at, and it really is all over the place. A lot of homers at a 3.5% increase. Okay, Catherine confirmed the numbers that Darren and I both saw at that. Some of the other parts of town are a little bit higher than that, 7-8%. It really depends on how your house was assessed. Okay, so we can't not say overall that every single person is going to have a decrease in their tax, but this is based on if you had a 4.1% or less of your EAV, you should see a decrease or a break even in your city portion. Okay? Questions?
Anyone?
Nobody. Wow.
So what, I guess I have a question. So, learning and what I learned and like last year, and even bringing it up for the newer people here. So the township assesses us.
Yes.
We don't see those numbers because they go straight
it's
to.
out there. You could see it online. So like I just mentioned, the three of us, we could see online every single household and what your EAV is reassessed to. You go to the Will County Supervisor of Assessments website, and you can pull up your address, and you can see yours and everybody else. It's all public information.
Should have gotten one in the mail,
Yeah, but I understand. But
changed.
He didn't get yours.
So what's the estimate from Will County then?
So people
again,
are
this is not my forte at all here, for sure. Why do we wait for?
All over the place. The increases that are out there are all over the place based on where the townships decided to go. Like I said, Homer looked like they were almost at 3.5% across the board, and no matter what subdivision you were in.
So Jim, every house I looked at in Homer Township, because I just randomly picked houses in a directory, and it was 3.5. I was cracking up. I'm like, it didn't matter if it was a townhouse, a single family, 3.5. But when I was picking streets through Lockport, on the Lockport Township, I have one house at 12.5. I have another one 8.5. I have one at 6.6. I had one that went down. I mean, it was from one here to here, and so I was like, wow, why'd that one go down? But maybe they appealed. It could be an appeal, which I didn't see on there. So that could be the outliner. I don't know why it went down.
So we know the townships assessed each house, what they've assessed each house. All that information goes to Will County. We're waiting for Will County to come back and say, somebody appealed, somebody did this.
Yeah, we have.
They haven't
we know
changed.
Who's appealed. Yes,
Okay.
we do know who's appealed. We get those letters, and actually, Sunny is going to attend some of those hearings this year. So we know who's appealed, but we don't know what's going to happen with those appeals. But not just that. Again, those numbers that they're giving me in August, those are preliminary numbers. So we will not get those final numbers until the spring, but you're asked to vote on something now. Okay? And it's like that with every taxing body through the whole state.
It used to be worse, Jim. You'd have to go ahead and make this decision in June, and you wouldn't get the new numbers until the following May. So it's a lot better than it used to be.
My next question is then for last year. Where did we levy to? What did Will County come to?
Oh.
Right. What did we estimate at, and what did the final numbers come in at, and then?
So last year, we levied 5.9 million, and we got 5,874,000.
Well, almost dead on.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Is that like historically, it's only been like within a 1% off of something?
That's a 6% difference, but.
Is that 6?
Yeah. Yeah.
Again,
So
not my forte.
It really
numbers.
is. Well,
Give me my
I can't
calculator.
do it in my head like Jason can, but anyway, you really don't. It's really hard.
Okay.
It's really hard. All I can work with are the preliminary figures they give me. I'm not making them up. I'm using preliminaries, but they're not final numbers. Okay. So.
The process is frustrating, to say the least, right? Getting into it is kind of ridiculous. But the good news is right, the dollars that people pay is dependent on their EAV, and that moves, and we can't control that, right? But we are stringing multiple years in a row of lowering the rate, right? And while we can, there are things we can control, and sometimes I push on trying to eliminate a little bit of cost here and there. I'm not going to try to totally pat ourselves on the back, but that's really what we can do, right? Is we said, some of us who've been here a little bit longer, when we were doing the first CIP, we would say, we're going to run through some of the cash that's sitting there, but we've got all this development coming on, and that's going to start to fund things for us. And that's kind of the point that we're getting to now, is we're starting to get the benefit of the new property, and property values are rising. So we're stringing together what our third or fourth year in a row of a lower rate, right? And that's, frankly, at these preliminary discussions, the way we have them, it's pretty good, right? And that's,
Can we set our tax rate, or we can set our tax
We
rate?
can set our tax rate, and it's interesting because a number of taxing bodies do that. They go with a certain rate, and they say, we kept your tax rate the same, but guess what? They got a ton more revenue because the EAVs went up.
Sure.
And remember, I told you it's an inverse relationship. So if EAV goes up, your tax rate goes down. Well, when you keep that tax rate here level, you are not giving them the benefit of all that new property that came on.
Sure.
So I kind of laugh when people use that, and they make people think that that's a good thing.
Right.
I am proud of the fact that we've lowered our tax rate each of those years by still getting additional revenues, okay?
Okay.
So, you
And
know,
then-
we know we need it. We know we need the funds. You know, we presented budget 2 weeks ago. We know that the need is there for us. We're not being frivolous with our spending. We have an agenda for what we're doing with our excess. You know, I think we're good stewards of taxpayer dollars, which is why, you know, I'm presenting to you something with growth and CPI in it. So, you know, I see that the needs are there. We're not just wasting away the money. I think, you know, we've, you know, all really analyzed this budget very thoroughly. So, you know, that's why I'm recommending, but it's up to you guys to decide. If you want to see a rate that, you know, a tax rate that's even lower than that, you know, we can do that. We can work the numbers, and I can tell you what, you know, that would amount to in a levy. But
I think your point on excess is a good one too, is, correct me if I'm wrong, I think excess revenue in the police automatically goes to fund their pension, right? We've committed to that, and everything else goes to capital, correct?
Right.
So, you know, we know we need money for capital, and we know we need to fund the police pension. So as long as we're not, which we don't, spending frivolously throughout the year, all this money is going to areas of need, right? And that's why I kind of challenge things throughout the year of, maybe we could save 20 grand here or 30 grand there, because it goes to capital or police pension. But all of those excess reserves, you know, they don't just, you know, it doesn't get stuffed in a Ben's mattress, right? There are really good areas.
Find that out.
They go to areas of need, and that is important.
Okay.
so in 2 weeks, we'll have a public hearing, okay? Just like we're going to do today for the budget, we'll have a public hearing, and then in the beginning of December, we'll ask for an approval.
All right.
All right.
Sounds
Thank you.
good. Thank you, Lisa. It was good, thorough. Appreciate it. All right,
Thank you for the
PW1.
PowerPoint.
You're welcome.
What's that, man?
I said, thank you for the.
Oh, right on. Lovely PowerPoint. All right, let's talk salt, shall we?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I do have a couple items on the agenda this evening. PW-1, MFT funds for salt. Hopefully, we don't have to use any this year. But we do have a current estimate for the salt for 2017-18. We have requested, and we have the allotment of 2,800 tons for the city. Right in the ballpark of what we've done. We've been pretty consistent over the last several years, looking back at our records. So for this dollar amount, $222,000 is what we're requesting be authorized, and we would need a motion to approve this resolution. Is what the specific city council action would be required for this. Any questions?
Nope, seems reasonable. We all good? Throw it on consent?
Quick question, we don't do additives with that as part of that MFT funds, or is this is just salt?
This is just for the salt, that's correct. I don't think this can go on consent. Can it? Oh, it can, okay.
All right, so we'll do a consent.
Yep, consent. Next item, PW-2. This is for the Illinois Route 7 Frontage Road Bridge, which we do have in the works for next year. This particular item, this is for the IDNR portion of the work. Unfortunately, as part of the work, we do have an Illinois endangered species. It is the banded killfish. There's some specific verbiage in there giving you a little bit more information regarding this, but basically what this document is saying is that we will do everything we can to avoid impacts. Any impacts to this species and to its habitat would be incidental to the project. And again, we would be doing everything that we can to avoid that. This is a requirement of IDNR. You can see the attached agreement, and again, we would need council's authorization in order to have that signed and completed and sent back to DNR. Looking for that to go on to consent as well. Any questions?
All right. Then we'll put it on a consent agenda then. Thanks.
Third item is regarding the Illinois 7 Frontage Road Bridge as well. This is a couple items in regards to the project moving forward. First off, we're looking for the approval of the preliminary engineering services agreement for federal participation. So what this is the actual agreement for the Phase 2 engineering work with Baxter and Woodman. As you can see, this is an IDOT form, so the majority of this is just a standard document. It is 80-20, so we're paying 20%, or we're paying 20% up to, and I know I have the dollar amount in here as part of the cost. We would be paying 20% up to not to exceed $38,241. The total cost for the design is $191,201.55. So again, what this is doing is this is making that agreement with our consultant for the Phase 2 design services and bidding related services. We would look for that to go on to consent. Any questions?
Is this bridge all ours? Is the city of Lockport's responsibility? City of Lockport property?
What, the history of that?
Yeah, you don't want to know.
I'll give the 30-word history.
Yes.
Thank you. Move on.
Next
Talk
item-
later there.
Next item is in regards to the same project and the same work that's going to be done. The LAA, the local public agency agreement for federal participation. Again, what this is saying is that we are agreeing to work with IDOT, and we are agreeing to pay our 20. They're agreeing to pay their 80% of the cost for this work. So again, this is for the engineering services only. When it comes to construction time, we'll be doing similar documents, but this is for the this portion of the document, or this portion of the work, I'm sorry. Looking for this to go to consent as well. Any questions?
When does it look like this will be open again and functional?
If I had to guess, I would say that mid-2019, this would be completed.
How do the powerhouse and people get there? I mean, do they just drive?
There's an alternate access if you drive down there. There's actually essentially what they did was they created a temporary drive through the water. They almost built a little bit of a dam, so there's an overflow there, but you can essentially, you're driving in low conditions, in high water conditions. There's not an access.
Wow, we couldn't do that.
All right.
No.
That's been in place for 6-8 months, yeah.
Oh, wow. Going on forever. All right, that's fine. You guys okay with this consent agenda then? Got to get it done. All right.
And then the final item is just the the resolution that we have to have authorizing this. So again, this is just going to go down with the packet. Approving MFT or I guess it is MFT, approving MFT funds to be used for this portion of our, again, 20% of the total project cost. Looking for that to be on consent as well.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's all part of the same thing, so. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes.
And then if I can jump in, maybe because your next item is capital improvement, right?
Yes.
Is it? But maybe we could wrap up the Terry with the surplus police department vehicles, and then we'll come back to CIP, and then you can take a break? Or does it matter?
Terry ain't going anywhere. What's the difference? You want to talk, Terry? Go ahead.
You bet. Mayor and council members, PCH1 Police Department is requesting that we surplus 8 vehicles. We have two 2009 Crown Victorias, squad car, the 2005 Crown Victoria. We're asking that we surplus our 2002 Dodge Ram, which was a seized vehicle. That was our truck enforcement vehicle. We are actually eliminating one vehicle from the fleet by doing this because you approved earlier a Chevy Tahoe, and the Chevy Tahoe is bigger than the Ford police vehicles we've been buying, so it will accommodate the 500-pound truck scales. So we actually put it in an officer squad car, our truck officer squad car. Also a 2006 Crossfire, that's a two-seater, really nice convertible. And we've been using that as a detective car the last few years. And we're going to buy, and you approved a real squad car earlier this year, so we're replacing that. We have a 2004 Nissan seized vehicle, a 2005 Nissan Maxima, and an unknown year Polaris golf cart that was seized, a DUI seizure. They'll be looking to permission to surplus these vehicles and auction them off to the highest bidder through open-off auctions.
Tell me about the golf cart again.
It was seized, it was a DUI seizure. The person was DUI on a golf cart.
They had a DUI in a golf cart?
He was driving a golf cart, yeah, on the streets.
Is it gas or electric?
I believe it's electric.
I mean, is this something we can utilize? I mean, we rent these things, or we beg, borrow, and steal at old canal days and stuff. Can we?
It's beyond our use. We thought about that. It's in pretty bad shape.
Okay.
It was in a DUI crash.
Oh, yeah. All right. All right. Well, if it's beyond hope, then that's fine. All right. Okay. It's just pretty straightforward. You guys have any questions, or is this okay for a consent then? All right. We'll consent that, please. Yeah, the zombie car. Okay.
Now back to the CAP. I'm just moving on.
Yeah,
I don't get
that's what the plan. We can roll everywhere. All right, Brent, is this you?
Yes, it is. This evening, I'd like to continue our discussion on the CIP. This was started at our last Committee of the Whole meeting. The document that I handed out tonight, the only change, I shouldn't say only, there are two changes. The project number I'm renumbering, so we're going to have a whole renumbering system. Project numbers moving forward, it's basically just going to be the year, so 18, 19, and then we're just going to start over at 100 for each year. So nothing fancy there, but just so if we do have ads, we're not having, you know, kind of everything, jockeying everything around. So if we do have an ad at a later date, it'll simply be, 19 dash, next number. The other one is, and I did not update this, but 7th and Washington reconstruction, which is 18-106. MFT funds will not be used for that project. It is correct in the individual handouts that we did, but I wanted to make clear on the overall document that MFT funds will not be used. So what I've handed out this evening are the 11 projects next year that we have not really talked about in great depth, or I have not heard from council on an approval. So that's why I started out with these 11. We do have quite a few other projects next year, but they are projects that we are either currently working on or we have discussed at council and we have already gotten approval. So that's why I kind of focused on these 11. Just in general, I think council is aware that we are looking for a large amount of improvements over the next 10 years. We have expanded this out to 10 years to try and make it a little more palatable and make it a little bit more, I think, of a potential for funding. At some point, obviously, we're going to have to talk a little bit more about funding and some of the shortfalls that we have in order to get all of these projects completed. But to start with, we feel like over these 10 years, you can see next year we still have a very aggressive year. The following year, we fall off quite a bit. We hop back up for 1 year, and then we kind of start to fall into the $6-7 million range. Long term, is that sustainable? That's something that I think we have to, we're still working through all of the funding mechanisms and where we're going to be. But just to give a little bit of an idea, I think that 6 to 7, that again, that gets us kind of through this, very aggressive track that the city's been on, which has been fantastic. We've made a lot of headway. As you guys can see, we're up until the wire even this year, trying to get as much possibly done. We have paving still going on as we speak. Prior to me getting here, I think the city's done a fantastic job of utilizing the funds and again, getting as much done as they could. But next year, specifically, the 11 projects, we can go through each individually. I don't know if anybody is interested in that. We certainly can. If there are specific questions on those, we can go over those. But just kind of from a big picture, I think just so everybody's kind of can see where we're at. We're going to be doing, every year, we would be looking at a couple water main improvement projects. So with those water main improvement projects, we would be doing the water main, typically, water main, the roadway, any sidewalk improvements. So we would be doing that type of work. That would be one of our main projects. And then our other one would be typically like what we're doing on 13th, 14th, Washington, and Jefferson. We did have water main, however, we also did some widening and we installed some storm sewer. So you kind of have two different type of major projects. And then the last 6 or 7 items every year are fairly consistent. We'd be looking at resurfacing, specifically in Homer Township, the Millen Creek Stream Bank stabilization, which I know we have in there next year, and then we've put into a B project list. The GIS, so again, GIS, right now what I'm requesting is 3 years of basically hitting the GIS extremely hard to get it up to where we need to get it to be utilized, accurate information, and really become a tool that the city's going to use. And then we go into resurface, seal, and patch, sidewalk, ADA, and then either sewer lining or sewer televising. So those are kind of consistent. Those are going to be our annual maintenance. I would consider those more of maintenance rather than capital. But again, we want to track everything in here because this is, this is really going to be the way I think moving forward we can track all of our projects. I think it's going to be very important for you guys to have that understanding what we're doing. Again, as I've kind of talked in the past, trying to give everybody a big picture on all of our projects so we're not, piecemealing and giving you bits and pieces. So with that, like I said, I can go into great detail on each of these projects. I don't mind it.
Can you just go over the one I keep asking about?
Yes.
Only because there's so many of us that will be impacted by it?
Let's back up a second. Before you got here, Brent, we had an issue with a project, right? I think it was when you were coming on. So we kind of said that we would physically speak about each one of these at each one, so everyone's on the same page. So
okay.
If you can, please, if everyone's cool with it, just 5 seconds on each project, what you think is the main things, issues on each one, and then if somebody's got a question on yours.
Okay.
No, but I just want you to spend a little more time, because I'm going to be asked this division and Gauger signalization over and over, so I need to know that.
Okay.
And then my question was, why was the cost so much more for Gauger and division versus 163rd and Gauger? And then you explained to me, we're going to fix all those sidewalk, the median or the side parts of it, which is crumbling now. So that will be addressed, so I just want people to know, because to me, that's a big issue right now for where I'm at, my area.
Sure. So we'll start, I guess, let's start at the very top, if you guys don't mind, of the project list. So division and Gauger signalization. It's project 18-102. This project, and it happens to be the one that Alderwoman Peretta is speaking about. This is the signalization at Division and Gauger. This is something that is a great need for the city. If anybody's driven through there during some key points, either AM peak or PM peak hours, there's a large backup of traffic. Southbound especially, people are trying to use the shoulders, and that is causing issues for the shoulders. The shoulders were not intended to be used in that way, so now you have the shoulders deteriorating, and that causes obviously bigger issues for the city. Debris gets out onto the street, and we can have some additional issues. So that kind of big picture, that's what we're looking at. It will be a signalized intersection. This is a partnership with Will County. Will County has 2 legs. The city of Lockport has 2 legs of the intersection. So it is a project that is like I said, a joint partnership. We do have STP funds for this project, so again, 80-20. The project cost has increased a little bit from this started several years ago till now. The STP, the governing body for that, has indicated that their funding will be capped at what the original estimate was, which was in the $1.3 million range. So there will be a little bit more cost that each of the city of Lockport and then Will County will take on. So again, the project itself, Gauger and Division signalization, all 4 legs of the intersection will have left turn lanes, so it will be channelized. So you will have one traffic, through lane in each direction, and then you'll have 1 turn lane. Again, the queuing that we have currently going on, all of the design is based on that queuing. So when we have, the traffic counts and the impacts to that intersection, it's going to be designed to allow everybody to get into those turn lanes and, to function. So everybody's not waiting in one southbound lane and trying to make the turn. Again, this is a significant improvement. The anticipated start date is May of next year. Everything goes well, it will be completed in next fiscal year, completely, buttoned up by the end of next fiscal year. Any questions on this project?
And then for Thunder Hill, will we review the traffic with the light coming through? Because right now, the reason I'm following this is because that light could change how hard it is for me to exit and enter my subdivision, mainly exit it with one entrance. I'm not sure if once the flow comes through, the traffic will come really fast over the hill, and it'll be car, 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 car. And so that's why I'm really watching this, because I'm sure it'll,
Give me...
The signal does stop and flips.
I understand, but then you're gonna have everybody from the right, will be everybody from the, instead of coming north-south, they're now gonna have everybody who's east-west turning into this, we can't see over the hill. When it's night, it's easy, you can see headlights. But when it's daytime, it's kind of hard to see how fast the cars are coming. And so I'm just wondering if the people who are trying to rush through a yellow going red, we're gonna have a different traffic flow. So for me, it's a concern. So this is why I'm watching this light. We've never had this kind of, it's not far from where I'm at. I mean, I know you think this is funny, but it's a big issue for where I am in my subdivision.
I don't think anybody thinks it's funny, Catherine. I think if the concern is,
So I'm just,
we're
this is why I'm watching it. 'Cause it's going to
micromanage every one of
change.
these projects from the council desk here. I think it's.
I don't know what your recommendation is, I guess.
I don't know either. Some subdivisions have traffic signals where it'll stop it when somebody comes up to the entrance of a subdivision. It'll trigger that light to do something different. I don't know what a
No,
solution is.
You're asking for an interconnect from your entrance out onto Gauger to connect to the county jurisdictional corner of Gauger and Division?
Yeah, we wouldn't do that.
That's never going to happen.
I don't know what the solution is. I'm just saying that it's going to make it most likely harder to exit.
Honestly, as well, I think it's going to actually help the flow.
That's where I wanted to go, but.
It's going to be going in increments,
I'm kitty corner from here. I'm in Karen Springs, so this is Sagebrook and doing all that stuff. My concern is just making sure that, this is a project, Ben, we were supposed to do 2 years ago, right? So we're getting on this, let's move it forward, and whatever it is. I think the scope of work, we can talk about it, because there's wetlands there, all that stuff, making sure that you guys got that covered. Sidewalks, right, when we talked about that was Sagebrook and connecting Pueblo Point, right? Are those in there?
Not in this project.
No.
I don't think you want to walk all the way out that corner.
Honestly, that's the first that I guess I'm hearing of it. It's not in our scope right now, so
Okay.
that's...
Okay.
But as far as to get to that specific question, I think that it will be better, because when you come to a stop sign, everybody's given a turn. You are taking your life a little bit in your own hands when you're trying to gap between a stop sign. However, when you have a traffic signal, typically you're going to have, 20 to 30 seconds of gap. So you will probably have a minute where you're gonna have zero chance. So you might have to wait, for that minute, but then you're gonna have that opportunity. Whereas right now, you don't ever really have that good, clear opportunity. You might have 5 or 10 seconds where that car stopped at a stop sign, they get through, the next guy's, individual is moving. So honestly, I do think it will be a better solution for the access point that you're talking about.
Okay, no, I mean, if it is, that'll be great.
Yeah.
But if it's not, then Terry will hear from me.
Sure.
I just don't want to see something happen.
And speed limits, just so everybody is aware, speed limits will not change as part of this project, so speed limits will remain the same.
And I believe, especially having the turning lane, what everybody does now is it's illegal to cross that white line, but everyone's turning right and they cross that line. So if you're in the correct lane and you go to turn right, someone's turning next to you. I mean, all kinds of
And
crazy
people have
things.
ended up in those wetlands. So,
Right.
Yeah. Very dangerous. Okay.
The next project, 18101 Illinois 7 Frontage Road Bridge, STP. This is an STP project, just discussed. This project has been out of service for the entire duration I've been here. I couldn't give you exactly how long it's been. Project is going to be done here over the next year and a half. We're in the submittal process. Okay, 18100. Valley and 8th Water Main Reconstruct. This is a very nice project. Roads are in dire need. Water main is in dire need in this area. As I think some of you who probably live in the area have seen, we're doing work on 8th and 7th, so this is going to kind of complete that area. Again, it's going to include water main, some curb, streets, storm sewer, and sidewalk.
Okay.
Next project, well 14 iron removal facility. This is the carryover from what we're currently working on. Again, nothing new here. This is just finishing out the project. The project has been going very well and is on schedule to be completed in May of next year. 18-105 Illinois 7, Illinois 171 intersection streetscape. This obviously, as we've talked about, this is the project downtown on State Street from 8th to 10th. Again, we're working through this. Hopefully we can start on the western half in July of next year and see how far we get. Homer Bike Path, this is something that we've been obligated to pay. This is $20,000 that it's for the Homer Bike Path, and again, this is something that we've been obligated to include.
Where is that? I mean, it's not one of these sheets, right?
That's the south side of 159.
It's not.
Right. But we don't have a sheet for that, right?
No, I don't.
So where is that again, Jason?
I think that's the one that's the south side of 159th where we agreed it kind of extends to nothing, but it's sort of in our planning area. You might not have been on the board at that time.
It was a Homer Township deal,
They kind of came to us and were like, this isn't happening unless you'll chip in, and we agreed to do it.
We're obligated.
159th Street.
18104 and 18107, similar projects. I skipped one. 18104 State Street, Illinois 7, water main replumbing and services. This is the work that will go on in conjunction with the State Street, Illinois 7 water main job that deconstruction spoke of tonight. This is a separate project that the city is doing. The city is going out to bid for. The hope is that deconstruction will get it, it's kind of work everything together, but this is to do the internal plumbing, take everybody from the rear side, which is where majority of people are connected today, out to the front. So just replumbing of water services. 18-107, 151st Street water main. This is water main to connect on 151st Street from McGregor west. This is to, basically it takes us all the way to Archer. This project is, again, this is something that we have made an agreement to get water to that northeast corner of Archer and 151st Street.
So, Darren, that was, you did that brand new road. You never put a water main back then when you did the road? 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
151st Street was about
Probably more than that.
7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah. But this is the one we approved with Strand's engineer, and they came in, we have to get it out to that, which calls that trade.
Yeah,
Correct.
there's
We had that
a
discussion about a year
annexation
ago.
agreement, we're obligated. We were going to be trying to access right-of-way and acquire that, and it was proving legally challenging, and Brent and Strand came up with the idea of going down the middle of the road, which allows us to do it. Or down the road and in the road right-of-way instead of the right-of-way.
Exeter and Sagebrook water main and Oak Avenue water main, similar projects. What we're trying to do is go through the city and trying to eliminate any dead ends. Exeter and Sagebrook, just kind of the way that it happened, they both came in. You know, kind of, I probably crossed us, and so we've got about 60 to 80 feet of water main that has to be extended to basically close the loop. This is right at 163rd and, like I said, Exeter and Sagebrook, so We have Strand working on that project, and that will be constructed next year. Oak Avenue is similar in regards to just trying to close out some loops. If you look at page 18-110, if you look at the location photo, I know it's kind of small, but this is just one that, since I've been here, I noticed and talked to the guys. We have a garden hose on this that runs to a storm sewer, and so it's just basically just trying to keep that thing, instead of flushing it, you know, every other day, it's just kind of a consistent flow of water through there. So what this will do is, that hydrant that you're looking at on the location photo is on the left side of the location map. So basically, we're taking that hydrant and we're extending it east, again, to another dead end. So this is, you know, these are the types of things that water quality, flows, and just generally giving us a lot more redundancy and ability to, you know, improve our water main across the city. This is that type of project. Again, Strand is working on that project and will be constructed next year. We're going to try and bring Exeter and Sagebrook, and then the Oak Avenue, trying to bring those two together as one project.
Oak
Yes.
Avenue on the south side, are those people who are going to be using the water, or are they be doing any recapture on that?
What we're going to do is we're actually, more than likely, we're going to cross the street right there, and we're going to run it on the north side of the road, because that is, I believe, unincorporated, if I'm not mistaken, on the south side. So we're going to get across the street and tie in that way. Okay. Obviously, like anybody, they would have that option, and it may come up. The location map, the other thing that I want to point out on that, the neat thing about this, GIS, we've over the last couple weeks, Pam's group has been using Rudiger and Tonelli, and I think they're doing a great job. Mike Dom came in, and so we're trying to kind of piggyback on what I think Pam's done, again, a great job putting this together with Mike. So what you can see here is this is actually using what he set up last week for us. I went in and I was able to create these maps. We can turn on water, sewer, sanitary. Again, I don't want to guarantee they're 100% correct. That's the big reason for the GIS work. But just so you guys can kind of start to see some of the benefits of really what this can do. And I think right here on my phone now, I can walk out to a project and it'll track me. I can turn on the water, sewer. I can stand, talk with a resident or a business owner or a future developer and say, you know, here's where we're at. Here's what we have. Zoom in, zoom out. And it's just going to be, again, a very beneficial tool for the entire city. And again, I think, like I said, Rudiger did a great job for Pam's group, and I think we're going to continue to use them moving forward. It looks like going to be, like I said, a good project for us. Central Square resurfacing. This is a couple pieces to this. Right now, for whatever reason, all of our drains in the property are sunken. Again, I can't really tell you exactly why. Just over time, they've failed. Either the bricks or the concrete rings have failed. So what we'll do is we'll raise those, make sure that all of our grading is correct again, do some spot repairs. We do have some failures in the parking lot, and do the resurfacing. This would be part of our resurfacing project in general, but again, just a specific item there. Stormwater project. This is something that I'm hoping that council will move forward with. Recently, over the past couple weeks, had some more stormwater projects. Obviously, when the rain kicks in, that's when we kind of start getting these. This would be an annual project. $100,000 is what we're looking for in capital for the construction, and then $25,000 roughly in engineering. Will it be exactly that every year? I don't know. It's going to come in based on requests. Right now, we have about a dozen. Since my time starting here, that when we get a phone call now, we're going out evaluating them. Again, with this GIS, again, I can't tell you how nice it is. We're able to zoom in. We're able to create sheets for each of these projects, so we have some documentation, some ideas, and then we can start to kind of work off of the stormwater, or work off of that for these stormwater projects. One that we're looking at next year is on the west side, Francis Street. I know we've talked a little bit about that at the council level, but that would be one, for instance, where we've got 10, 12 houses that are impacted, and we'd be looking to potentially bring that project forward. Illinois 7 channelization. Again, we spoke about this several weeks ago, and this is a project that Burke Engineering is heading up for us. The phase 1 portion of the work is ongoing and will continue into next year. This would be a 2020 construction. If all goes well, this is something that we're anticipating STP grants or STP funding. We've already spoken with them about it, and hopefully in 2020 some funds become available and we can capture those. This is the project that from about Lincoln to, again, about Millen, where the city, or the IDOT roadway goes from 3 lanes to 2 lanes, 3 lanes, 2 lanes. We're trying to make that more consistent with the traffic flows, improved traffic flows. Also provide some stormwater. That right now there's not any real stormwater other than some ditching. So we would provide stormwater improvements as well. Also with that, we would provide water main. That's a separate project that's listed in future years when we actually do the work. But again, just so everybody is aware, this is a perfect opportunity. Everything's opened up. We've got a lot of odds and ends in that area. We would make one consistent water main extension and loop while we're doing that work. 2nd Street Bridge, 18108. I just want to bring everybody's attention to that sheet if they could for a second. If you haven't gotten down there to take a look at it, I think it's a great looking bridge. I think it really turned out very nicely. The picture on the left is actually it. I wish it was a sunnier day when I was out there, but I met with Chevron today about the Lomar that's going on, and they were very excited about it. They complimented the city on how well it turned out. So just wanted to kind of show you that photo in case you had not seen that yet. But essentially what this is a carryover of the project just to close it out in the spring. Roughly $20,000 just to close it out. Hamilton parking lot, this work includes resurfacing, removal of the existing broken up and damaged concrete islands. This is where I know that everybody's been there for Canal Days. You're tripping over broken stones. Kids are throwing stones at each other, pieces of the broken pavement. So we're going to get that all cleaned up, and then also we're going to work on some stormwater in there to make sure that we're capturing the stormwater and utilizing it, but then also, like I said, create more of a consistent surface out there for Canal Days and other festivals. The 7th and Washington reconstruction, 18-106. This is a project that has been designed. HR Green has done the design on this project. We're nearing completion. We will be having a again, if council moves forward with all of these projects, we will be having an open meeting for our residents sometime in November in order to discuss the project, or early December in order to discuss the project. This is water main, widening of the roads, and generally, I'm sure if you've driven these, you see that they're fairly narrow, so we do have to get some right-of-way acquisitions, working on that with the residents down there. But again, a very nice project that it kind of mirror I'll say this is like the east side, and it'll mirror what was done several years ago on the west side, the inverse of it.
That's the one that's right behind here, right?
Correct.
Falls the creek?
Correct.
How do you widen it next to the creek?
Towards the residents. Yep. Homer Township resurfacing right now. What we have in there is to do Arrowhead South, portions of Arrowhead South. I believe, I'm looking at my notes for next year. Looks like we're looking to do all of Arrowhead South. Again, this is just part of the resurfacing, so this would be lumped into our overall resurfacing, get the best price that we possibly can. The goal, just so council's aware, we're gonna have a little bit of a different look. Rather than running up until the snow with our paving, we're gonna be following the snow in the spring. The goal is to get this thing out and have a February bid and be paving as soon as we possibly can in the spring. So we're beating this. Millen Creek Stream Bank Stabilization, Phase 2. This would be Phase 1. We will at some point have the potential to have HLR who completed their study, which essentially is like a phase 1 for the entire stream. You're going from Lago Vista all the way down to the I&M Canal where it discharges into the I&M Canal. Very long process or project overall. What we'd be looking to do is isolate some areas, the most problematic areas, and then see if we can attack those, make some nice improvements, but again, kind of piecemeal it, phase it, and otherwise we're looking at about a $10 million overall project. Well 15 construction, again, this is something that was discussed. This is going on the well 10, existing well 10 shallow well site. Well 15 will be a deep well. It will be blended on site, so well 15 and well 10 will be blended on site and then distributed to throughout the city. The project of the Gauger and the Gauger Road water main extension that we talked about, this new water would be tied to the southern portion of our city and the Division Street corridor by that new extension. So again, this is well 15 construction. It is a process, so first year, next year, we would dig the well, we'd get the hole in the ground, we'd start evaluating the water, we would do the testing. From there, we would have to actually come in, Strand will be doing the design of the water treatment. Well, once that gets approved, then we would do the installation of the water treatment. So it is a several-year process. But next year you will see the construction begin there for the well itself. GIS, again, this is, we're looking to, vastly improve our GIS. The goal is obviously to make it usable for our consultants and for future developers, but it's also going to be a great tool in-house. And one of the thoughts that we're toying with right now would be that we would actually have a computer that would be solely dedicated to this for all of our employees. We give them a work order, they go over, they can zoom right into this on the computer. It's a read-only computer. Zoom right in, they can hit the print button, they go out and they've got an idea of exactly what they're looking at, where the utilities are. So again, I can't stress enough just how important the GIS in the city is. It will be and is going to be, and I think we're already talking about doing sign inventories, we're talking about doing tree inventories, street lighting inventories. So I think a lot of the questions that you guys have, that I have coming into the city, not knowing where things are and how many of things we have and whose jurisdiction, it's all going to be there right in our hands. You hover over it and it will tell you this is a ComEd light that such development pays for. This is one that the city of Lockport pays for. So I think it's going to be a fantastic tool. We're looking at 3 years, requesting of $100,000. Again, 100 for basically in general terms water, 100 for sewer, and 100 for storm. But that work would be done in conjunction. We're going to try and do as much as we can in-house with interns. We have the data collection software. We would go out there and simultaneously, while we have some other folks working on it, we would be doing that. 2018 resurface, seal, and patch. Working through our list right now. Sealing, just so everybody is aware, when I say that, what we're looking to do is crack sealing. So some of the recent projects, when that centerline crack starts to open up, it's very important to get out there and get it sealed up before water gets in there. We get the freeze thaw, and it just exacerbates the the deterioration of that roadway. So that's what that seal means. And then patching, again, these are some larger patches. Of course, as a public works department, we go out and we do patching, but these would be for some of the larger patches across the city. Sidewalk and ADA project, this is a consistent project that we have every year. We would be looking, basically from now, we've already got a list started for resident requests and business owner requests. And then the sewer lining, this is the, again, in conjunction with what we've done from red zone televising done this year. We will pick the problematic areas and go out and we will sewer line. This will eliminate infiltration and exfiltration. So basically what gets into the pipe will stay in the pipe from somebody's house or from a business, but then we also will not be taking the groundwater into our sanitary, and we will continue to decrease the the flows that get into our treatment plants. So again, a very important project. That's 2018 in a nutshell.
All right.
Do not ask.
Mercy.
Thank you, appreciate it. You are not holding forward. Thank you, Jim.
Well,
Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Got everything
Yeah,
going.
Jim. Brad, thank you very much for that information. Thank you for all those sheets I had to read, too.
That's the key. Just give them to you in just
Brad, I
enough
just have
time.
a question
Yes.
on the sidewalk and ADA project. That is part of the 50/50.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Right.
So that the residents know that, you know, funds will always be there to participate in that 50.
Absolutely. We want people to use that. I mean, it's very important. Yes.
So that comprises 1/10 of the 10-year CIP, so we're not going to unroll the other 9 years on you tonight.
Jim wants to do it private.
We will have CIP sheets for each one of those. That's where Jim's request started, but we said no. Yeah.
And one thing to know, right, so we're in front of Exeter, the water main, that's $60,000. That's on us. We didn't have the developers put in, right? That's a miss on us. That's something that, right, we're getting better with GIS and figuring all that out, right? We've been pushing behind the scenes, is that people are catching this and it's on the developer that's going in there. So the city and the taxpayers don't have to pay it. So this is very important. Thanks.
But, so again, you've got 10 years worth, there's 10 sections. Also, please take note of section B, which is the very last one, so it's 11 sections technically. Some of those will be warranted when time allows and it's appropriate, like water treatment expansion. And, you know, some history on the CIP, where the last one, I think, was a 4-year CIP, as we sunset that and we start a new one. These have always been structured as flexible. If we have revenues, we can do more. If we don't have revenues, we can do less. You know, this is in our strategic plan. It speaks to this as well. And you've heard a speech a little bit from Lisa and I, and you're going to hear from Brent as well, is where we've reached the point where we've exhausted excess reserves. And what we're looking for the council to do is look at any kind of prioritization in the rest of this list. Because if we agree on this current CIP, then we're going to have to come back to the council and talk about some revenues to complete it. Because I can tell you right now that we don't have all the funding in place to complete this list that's before you, so.
All right.
Right.
Okay. Well, I think it's a good discussion in our winter months, right? We can talk about future stuff and how to fund it. No, I'm serious. It's a good thing for when we got nothing else to do in February. All right. You guys have anything else? Yeah, go on vacation.
I know Brent has talked a lot already, and I apologize for this. And I know it's on the website, but would you please tell the folks out who are listening, the leaf collection? How long does it go till? People are wondering how long they have till.
Unfortunately, they've only got a couple days left. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. I wish. Unfortunately, honestly, this year, leaves haven't fallen yet. I mean, we typically we would have started about 2 weeks ago, and we would continue for probably 4 to 6 weeks. Not to say that we're going to cut that short, but this year it seems like the leaves have not come down as quickly, so it's kind of been slow, quite honestly, picking them up. So I'm anticipating that we're probably going to go into the first week of December. You know, we basically go until they're all down. So as this is kind of slid this year, I mean, it's somewhat weather dependent.
Okay, that's good news, because I think some people thought they already missed their chance.
No, we go through the city. My understanding is we go through the city about 4 times, you know, from start to finish. But again, I keep asking the same thing, and there's just not many. You know, again, you see leaves out there, but we just haven't had, I think, what typically they would anticipate by Halloween. So
pass out.
Sorry.
Thanks, Brad. We've also added 1 more week of yard pickup with Waste Management this year too. So.
Okay. All right. Anybody got anything new? Otherwise, we'll close this out.
Sorry. Ben, in 3 minutes, can you update us on annexation?
Sure.
All right.
3 minutes.
2 minutes. So yeah, we've had a lot of deliberations on annexations. We've had different conversations about them and forced annexations. We've talked to, when we did the RV ordinance, we've done other things. Beautification, I mean, I think I've talked to Jim, I've talked to Joanne, I've certainly talked to Darren many times. Jason a little bit, even Catherine asked me the other day or sent an email about some annexations, and the mayor speaks to this often when we do talks where people are confused as to why aren't we making someone take care of their property? Well, they're not in the city of Lockport. So there's a map that was created in 2009. We've used that kind of as a template, but also other priorities and things have happened that we're starting to pick some of these off. They're going to go, some of them are required to go through planning and zoning, and then you'll get them at the committee of the whole and the council to approve. We did approve a couple even earlier this year. We did the Roccos on 159th and another parcel there for marketing purposes. Lawrence Avenue, right across from the Park District, will be coming in. Typically, we contact them and say, we'd like to bring you in. If they work with us, we work with them. If they don't, we can force them in some situations. And so we'll be working on those. There's one north of Farrell regarding near the Pro Lodge, so we're going to be bringing in. There's two east of 159th on Gauger that we're going to be bringing in. That will be interesting because it will hopefully create a commercial corridor over there that we can continue to grow on. So staff is working on these. There's probably 3, 4, 5 in the works. You're going to be seeing these over the next few months. At some point, I wouldn't mind some additional discussions possibly at the council level in regards to what's next or what priorities do you want us to push on. I know Steve had talked about a few down on New Avenue as Archer and State come together. There are others, and we've kind of responded as we've had some requests, but I think annexations are important enough for the whole council to deliberate on at some point in the winter months of February when we're slow. We'll put a council memo together for you guys to kind of look at other suggestions. It's not something we can really deliberate an executive session on, but just wanted to let you know that we are working on some annexations and we'll be bringing them to you soon. Was that less than 3 minutes?
Good enough.
Okay.
Our town is Swiss cheese. We need to close it.
Yeah.
Sure is.
And I
All right,
guess,
my friends, anything else?
Make a
All
motion
right.
to adjourn?
Right on. Anybody want to second that? Seconded by JR. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
2-minute break?
Do you guys need to?
Yes.
All right.
Let's talk about,
Let Jim talk.
All right, everybody ready? We're going to start our city council meeting. Kathy, when you can, give us a roll call.
Present.
Present.
Here.
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 All right, looking for a motion to have a consent agenda tonight.
Make a motion?
Joanne, seconded by Renee. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, consent agenda tonight is the October 18th regular city council meeting minutes, committee of the whole meeting minutes from the same date, payroll period ending October 22nd, our various bills, PZ case 2015-09, which is a final plat in Sagebrook, and then there was a motion to approve resolution 17093, which is the same. So looking for a motion to approve.
I make a motion.
All right, Joanne, seconded by Jason. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes.
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 All right, Pam, I'd like you to move PZ1 up top, so we don't have to keep Jim here any longer, please.
Yep, absolutely.
Sorry.
This item, Jim Pearden, on behalf of Lockport Square, has submitted for a plat of re-subdivision for lots 13 and 15. The original plat, which came in 2007, was to accommodate a Target store and a multi-tenant commercial shopping center. Since then, as we know, the Target is no longer, and we have new users interested in the property. Therefore, the applicant has had to create a final plat, which would create a new Lot 13, which would now be called Lot 13A, and Lot 15 would be divided into 3 separate parcels, A, B, and C. I've identified the acreage. This did go to a special meeting of the Plan and Zoning Commission because the applicant has an obligation with Marcus Theater to provide them with a final recorded plat at the time of closing, and Marcus is looking to close sometime mid-November. The Plan Commission did approve this by a vote of 4-0, and staff is proposed resolution number 17-094, and we ask that the council approve it this evening.
All right, so we're looking for a motion to approve 2017-013.
So moved.
Second. Seconded by JR. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? All right, very good, done. All right.
Glad you enjoyed our whole meeting for that. Sorry.
No, Jim. All right, so I'm going to jump over to our budget discussion. So I got a public hearing I need to do, so I'm going to read this. This public hearing is being held pursuant to Illinois law to hear discussion and public comment on the proposed budget for the coming fiscal year, which has been on display for the requisite length of time. I ask that Lisa Heglin review the highlights of the budget. Do any members of the council have any questions? Oh, why don't we just go from there? I thought I was going to read it all. Go ahead.
I'll just give a quick summary. We have total expenses in this budget of $49 million. We're using reserves of $9.9 million to fund the $10 million of capital.
Open public hearing.
I'm sorry. So you guys want me to do what? Say, are we open in public hearing?
I'll make a motion to open a public hearing.
All right.
Amateur.
I'll second.
Seconded by Jason. See, I just read instructions as an amateur. So, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Jason and Darren. So now that we are in public hearing, Lisa, lay the highlights on us, please.
Yes, I'll continue where I was at. We were using excess reserves of $9.9 million to fund the $10 million of capital outlay next year. It's a balanced budget with a small operating surplus of about $146,000. There's no changes since I presented the budget 2 weeks ago, and we're looking for approval at the November 15th meeting.
All right, you guys have any questions? No. All right, anyone in the audience? Angie, this is your chance, man. Good, all right. Okay, there being no other persons that would like to make the comment, I will go ahead and close the hearing, but we'll do it by you can have a motion to close?
Motion to close.
Renee?
A second.
Jason, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, done. All right, my friends, so let's jump over to Mr. Cand, PW1. We're moving along, brother. Okay.
This was initially on consent, and I know it was requested to be pulled off for further discussion. Again, what this is taking our water from well 10, which already is connected to well 14. So this is actually an extension from well 14 to 163rd Street. So not only does it take water from well 14, but it also takes water from well 10 and then the future well 15 site, which we're talking about. So those two are already connected. So that's how the water actually gets from our new well, again, well 15, all the way down to 163rd Street. Water main is proposed to be 12 inches in size. I know that the discussion was, will this need to be 12 or 16? The 12 is based on the model. However, after further discussions, the 16-inch would provide us for future growth, additional future growth. The 12-inch took into account, just about anything, but, the off chance that somebody, further south or further east, or maybe an unincorporated area were someday to request. The 16-inch would give us some additional flexibility after speaking with Strand. We do have Mike Waldron here this evening from Strand. For any additional questions that maybe saw it. Council, any other questions?
Well, let me make a motion to approve, and then we can discuss.
Okay.
Looking for a motion?
I'll make a motion.
JR?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jason. All right, so any outstanding questions on this? Well, I think there was some questions, but I feel like they probably were resolved.
They've been resolved.
Okay. All right, so looking for a, let's do a quick roll call.
Roll call.
Saban?
Yes.
Petrakos?
Yes.
Bergbauer?
Yes.
Bilogly?
Yes.
Vandermeer?
Yes.
Deskin?
Yes.
Bartleson?
Yes.
Beretta?
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right. Terry, you're up with PCH 1.
Thank you, Mayor. PCH 1 and PCH 2 are both relative to the same vendor, Canine Guardian. Canine Guardian has already performed work for us from January to September of this year. They charge $2,500 a month. They are, again, owed $22,500. This payment was delayed because we did not have a contract. It'd be our recommendation that you approve the bill.
All right, so looking for a motion to approve.
I make a motion.
I'll second.
Joanne, JR. May I have a roll call, please?
Saban?
Yes.
Petrakos?
Yes.
Bergbauer?
Yes.
Bilogly?
Yes.
Vandermeer?
Yes.
Deskin?
Yes.
Bartleson?
Yes.
Beretta?
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right, and next we're looking for a motion to approve the contract to go in with Canine Guardian, so that's Resolution 17095.
I'll make a motion.
Jason,
I'll second.
seconded by Christina. Let me just try to cut to the heart of this. I think that, we've talked about process and going out for RFQs and these kinds of things, and I agree. I think this is just one of those highly specialized items that I understand why we didn't. This is a very local person who's been able to respond, I think, to animal control problems. Even if we found somebody else who did such an odd thing, probably be quite some distance and wouldn't have the same response. I mean, I think just the pragmatic understanding of why we just continued with this person, I get it. So I'm all for approving it, but if anybody feels different, please say something. Otherwise, we'll do a roll call.
Everyone knows my concerns, right? I mean, the process of it, we keep talking about the board members should be setting process and procedure. So I think we could do a little bit better to clean this up and make it a little bit more transparent out there. And you're right, that person that's going to come in a month after we approve this 5-year contract that says, I could have done the same thing. We have no out, we have no whatchamacallit. So there may be people out there we don't know. It's one of those. So this actually killed me to see it. It actually went from a contract we didn't have since 2009, and now we've got a 5-year contract for it, and real no opener negotiations, no closing, no outs in the contract or any of that stuff. So I think it could be cleaned up a little bit better. Put something in the contract, right? Maybe 1 year with renewals that come up, whatever it is, just in case something happens. But either way.
We can opt out of this contract anytime we want with notice.
Or the council can make a motion on the floor to amend it to a 1-year term, if that's if that's
Yeah.
the,
I normally agree with you. I think this is one, though, where this is probably the right guy, right? Just don't want to spend chief's time on this every year either.
But,
I don't care.
I mean, I don't mind a 1 year as long as there's no, you know, every year you're just like, yep, it's good, we'll keep going. I have no problem with that if that makes it feel better. Jen?
I agree with that. It should be a 1 year. There's a lot of, that can happen in 5.
All right, well, let's do a roll call on it being a 1 year, okay? So that's what we're going to vote on. If you guys are okay with making this, amending this to a 1 year contract, right? Hopefully that'll
Anybody
take,
think about a 2 year? Because at 1 year, he can come back and say, well, now I'm gonna increase it 5%. I gave you that price because I got it
it's
for 5
possible.
years.
We don't know how it's going to go when the chief goes back to him with this.
So
but-
do we know if there was any talk about that? If it's not a longer period of time lease, that
Well,
they could increase the, you know, the price?
I will tell you that we had originally approached him about increasing his liability insurance. He has $1 million coverage right now. And when I approached him with that, he said, look, I'd rather just forget the contract. I'll walk away from this. And so he's at a point now where, you know, we don't want to lose him because we did contact other vendors in the area. We contacted a critter vendor and asked him, could you do it? And he said, no, we're not going to do it. The issue here is really that we're tying up officers who are making a lot of money waiting for animal control if we do one of these other vendors. That's the issue.
I agree with that 100%.
So
that portion, yeah.
We believe that this is the best option. He's been very good with us. He's the only one that actually comes out on dangerous animals, like the dangerous pit bull that Alderman Deskin called in last year. He was out there with us trying to catch him, and he's much more equipped to do it than we are. He has the dart guns and all that stuff. We don't. But that's why this guy's so valuable.
That's a nasty dog.
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to my original statement about, like, look, I get the feelings about, like, you know, RFQs, but sometimes you just have the right person lined up. So I'm fine with it as a 5 year. So, I mean, if you guys, like, if you,
Why don't you do a 2 year with 3 1 year renewals?
well, you've been the one negotiating with him, chief. From what I'm understanding, he's like, he'll do this with a 5 year, and he's like kind of done.
No, I don't think it matters to him whether it's a 2 year, 1 year, whatever. But I think as long as the price stays the same, he doesn't have to increase his insurance, he's going to be okay.
All right. So if we came at it with a 1 year, you don't feel like it's going to just cause frustration? You're the one who's been negotiating with him, not us.
I mean,
So-
I'd rather see a 2 year. I think he'd be more comfortable with that, but.
2 years would be fair.
All right.
Okay, so somebody needs to make that motion.
All right, so make a motion for a 2 year.
Okay, I make a motion that we extend it to 2 year lease, and then with the possibility of renewal for the next 3.
Yeah, that's fine, contract.
1 year.
I know, talk about the real estate
Oh,
agent.
sorry.
A lease.
A lease.
Didn't sound like that, sorry.
Contract. 2 year contract with 3 1 year renewals.
Monthly payments of.
Sorry, I got carried away, no.
Is that all right? You got that, Kathy? We're going to vote on a 2 year contract with optional yearly
I'll
renewals.
second.
All right, seconded by Renee.
And Sonny can make those changes before they execute it, so it's fine.
Okay. All right, so can we do a roll call on that?
Yes.
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 Thank you, everyone.
That's everything. Okay. I don't think anybody's got anything else, right?
Yes, that's
No good. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, that was Jim and Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.